Hey guys, let's see what we got. We got six people in here. Cliff's in here. Dirk's in here. Blair's in here. Darren. And I can hear myself echoing back there, so Steve must be watching my stream. Oh goodness! And we got John backstage. I think I seen him step away a little bit. There he is. So I'm gonna add John to the stream. Hey, John.
What's up?
Not a lot. I was almost going to sleep back there. I was watching something on TV, and I guess I just got sleepy. You know how you eat something, you sit down and start watching something, you get real sleepy, or you do when you're 46 years old. You start doing that. I can't stay awake for nothing now.
Yeah, I figured there'd be a lot in here backstage like last week. I saw a bunch of us. I was like, wow, it's gonna be a full crowd.
Yeah. So I think Darren's wanting on, so I think I'm gonna send him the link real quickly here. And like I always say, if anybody else wants to join in, they are welcome to.
If you see random movement, it's my dog. He's in here. He's
Oh,
just laying down. he's laying down right now. But if you see like a black shadow, that's him.
Well, you always see my dogs moving around. Usually Brandon, the white basset hound, he's usually moving around.
Mm-hmm.
So Darren, I sent you the link, and I'll wait till I see you backstage there, and I'll add you. And Dirk, it's okay that you missed the cabin stream. You can certainly watch that on the replay if you want to. I think everybody pretty much liked that, just as something different when I did that a little earlier. I actually got a good signal. I was getting like 5 bars up there at my mom's cabin. I was doing that purely on my cell phone signal. So
Wow.
I didn't think that was too bad.
No, you don't usually get signal in country like that. I grew up in an area like that, and it was the middle of nowhere, so you wouldn't even get God, it's like if you remember on AT&T how sometimes it would show like Edge Network E, you wouldn't even get E. It would just be like
Oh,
nothing.
wow.
So it was bad like going out there trying to do anything.
Hey, Darren,
So
you
Hey
ready to
guys,
talk Savage Streets tonight?
yeah, considering it was my pick, I got the YouTube link as well. It's a pretty good
Okay,
copy on there.
yeah, it is a HD copy. I was shocked that it was like the first one that popped up there. I was like, really? With all that music and everything, they haven't pulled this one off there. But
mm-hmm.
so,
Yeah, just makes it so much easier, doesn't it, to
mhm.
stream it?
If you want to watch it on the YouTube link, I have put that in the chat, and it was also in the description. It should be the first chat message up here, in case somebody needs that link. And if you've got a Blu-ray or a DVD, I'm sure you can get it synced up pretty well with where we're starting at, which I've got mine set for a motion picture marketing release. That's where I've
Yeah,
got mine queued up to.
same. Yeah.
Texas is in here too. He says, rub a dub dub. I've got cross eyes.
It's funny.
And Darren, what'd you think of the cabin stream earlier?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. Like I said on the stream, you got like a little Evil Dead 4 type setup there in the future. But no, yeah, it looks really cool. I mean, the outside as well, and it looks like you're in the middle of nowhere.
It basically does. I mean, my parents are out in the country, but like my mom said, you cannot see that cabin from the house. So if you're at the house, even if you're walking around outside, that cabin is still that far up there that it's shrouded in wood. So you basically cannot see it. So it is like being literally in the middle of nowhere, and I had forgotten how peaceful it was up there till I went up there to film today. And then I was like, boy, this takes me back to having those weenie roasts with the family and stuff like that. And you know, I love my husband, but Steve's not he's not an outdoorsy person anyway. So I'll say occasionally, "Hey, Steve, let's go out there to the fire pit and have a weenie roast." And he's like, "Are you kidding,
He's
Dana?"
like, hell no.
Yeah, it's like, hell no, I don't. He says, "You go out there and you cook some hot dogs and bring them in on a plate, and I'll eat them. But I'm not going to stand out there and roast these hot dogs."
That's funny.
Do y'all have Darren? Do y'all have weenie roast? Do you roast hot dogs outside on a fire? Do people do that?
Yeah, yeah. It's like a summer thing, obviously here.
Okay.
Hamburgers, hot dogs, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think it's as big as it is in the US, but yeah, people do it a lot.
I just think it's a relaxing thing. I mean, if you don't get eat up by mosquitoes or something like that, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
or you know, I like to go camping. I haven't been camping in God knows when. But Steve's not a person that likes to camp either. He would rather be like he is now, back there sitting on the couch watching TV or laying in bed watching TV or something like
He
that.
likes his home comfort zone.
He's a homebody. He definitely is, and more so the older he gets. Every year he gets older, the more he wants to stay at home.
I'm more like that now. I mean, in my 20s, I was really into camping and stuff. I did more. But yeah, I mean, I grew up kind of in an area like in the middle of nowhere. So it was weird, like watching like all the cabins in Friday the 13th, like especially in part 2,
Mm-hmm.
not Higgins Haven, but that cabin is where I grew up. There were so many of those cabins out in where I lived. Like it was in the middle, it was by lakes. And
Yeah.
it was just kind of weird watching those movies because it was like it was like, oh, that just looks like the cabin we go to eat like chicken every other week, you know, or it's just it was odd. Or like the barn in part 3 where Jason's in,
Mm-hmm.
like my grandma had a barn just like that.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of odd in a way, like the nostalgia with Friday 13th, because especially you sort of like associate it to weird things.
Well, you know how when I said that my mom used to bring a portable DVD player up there to the cabin, she did early on. She would bring it up there a lot, and she started out watching slasher movies, you
Mm-hmm.
know, Friday 13th and stuff like that. And then she got like, Dana, I can't do this anymore. This is creepy up here. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and every little noise I hear, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to watch this movie and people are getting chased to the woods and, you know, what falling out of trees dead and stuff like that. So after a while I guess it gets to you
Yeah,
that
imagine
oh,
watching
Yeah.
Blair Witch Project and then going home to the woods. Like I lived in the woods. I lived on a gravel road like 3 miles in
yeah.
on a hunting reserve, and like it was like exactly like the movie, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is like my backyard." This is like
Mhm.
terrifying. I don't live like that now, but yeah, it's weird. Living in the country is it's kind of different, you know, to explain, especially if you've never lived there. Most people don't. No internet, no, you know, dial up back in the day if you got
Yeah,
lucky, you know.
I went from dial up to internet by satellite, but by the way, guys, internet by satellite sucks.
No,
You know,
yeah.
when I first got it, it was pretty decent. But then over time, I guess more and more people got it that lived out in country areas. And I don't know if it was a bottlenecking situation or what, but it got so bad. I remember going to the Saturday night chats with Dead Pit, and I could stay on there maybe an hour, and then, you know, I just lose my connection. So I never could stay on there as long as they were on there, and it used to disappoint me so much. Um, but yeah, they don't really get that. People that have lived in cities all their lives, they don't get what it's like to be in the country, and that isolation and stuff, which can both be a good thing and a bad thing. Um, because sometimes I would get depressed because I felt like I was so isolated. It was like there's no, we had kids out there when I was growing up here and there. Kids would be out there, and then some kid would move away, and then maybe another kid or two would move in that area. But back when I was growing up, there weren't a lot of people living out there where my parents are at. And so it was like hit or miss whether you had a friend to ride bikes with or something like that. So it was a lot of entertaining yourself type of things. And I spent a lot of time outside, swinging on grapevines, climbing up trees, going on the back part of the property. I talked about going down in the bottoms and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty much that's country talk right there. Hollers and bottoms and all that stuff. But that's just what I heard my dad say. Yeah, we went down the bottoms and we was doing this and that and the other. And my mom, I've said this before, she was always a worrywart and wanted to know exactly where me and my brother were at all times. She'd be hollering out the back door, hollering out the window in the summertime. If you open the window up, she'd be, "Where are you guys at? I can't see you." And we'd be, "We're over here, Mom. Well, get where I can see you." Or, "It's lunchtime. Come in and have, your Kool-Aid and sandwich," or, whatever we would have at that time. Um, but sometimes I'd give anything to go back and be doing that now because I had absolutely zero worry about anything at that time, except
See,
when go ahead, Darren. Sorry.
sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. The closest I got was basically my grandmother. She used to live right, and I mean right at the top of this hill, and it was the middle of nowhere. Because I've always lived in the city, I've always been, city. But the UK country is I think it's a lot different to what, portrayed in America in movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite eerie out there. It's something like you got the scene on you from the werewolf film in London.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Pubs and stuff like that
Right.
still exist, and people with that mindset still exist. Got little communities and stuff, and yeah, if you get caught in the wrong one, I suppose it's the same with yourself, then you're in the middle of nowhere.
Would you have people like in those pubs? Is it like American Werewolf in London? Are they going to be like,
Oh yeah,
stay out of these certain areas and
yeah, very very much so. It depends. If you go up to where that film was made, which is not that far really. I think it was made in Wales. Yeah, there's people like that. I would imagine in all walks of society, and just obviously now it's not so bad, but back then in the 80s and stuff, it was like you say, terrifying. But I would love to go up to like your mother's cabin and do like a 24-hour or like a 12-hour movie marathon, do all the Friday the 13th or something like that. That would be really cool, I think.
It would be really cool if we could get a bunch of people to. Of course, I don't know how my mom would feel about all these people converging on her cabin.
Yeah.
But, it would be really awesome if we could do something like that. If you ever make it to the States, Darren, let me know and I'll try to get something fixed up. I'll say, "Hey, Mom, can some people come out to your cabin and
you'd have to do it as well
screening
to where you like on a really dark, stormy night as well. Where it's lashing down with rain. That would be awesome. Yeah.
We don't live in the country here. I mean, it's pretty busy where we are. We live like 30 minutes from Nashville, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's not at all country. I mean, I grew up pretty much in the sticks, but like I have a couple of friends who I went to high school with who, oddly enough, moved here. Like I'm like 4 hours from where I grew up, and they ended up here. One of them lives in East Nashville, and I joke with him all the time. Like he's like he's really like into the bar shit and trendy and all that. And I'll laugh and I'll be like, remember this? I'll be like, remember that time we were at your grandma's trailer and we were duct taping lights to your truck and shit? And he's laughing. It's just, it's weird. Like, it is odd though, because like I could never go back to living in the boonies, but it's funny, like thinking about living there so long, like how you got away with just like, you know, no internet and just like it was so, you know, the movie information, like especially like I grew up in the 90s, getting information on movies was like you go to the video store, you might buy a book that you read something in, you might tape trade, you might see something, but it's like commercials. For me, it was like I would go to a local theater and I would see one sheets in the window. Like that's how I figured out about Army of Darkness. As I was like, my mom was at like a Piggly Wiggly, and I was like walking down, and I saw Army of Darkness and Tremors in the window. And no, it wasn't Tremors. It was Army of Darkness and something else in '92. And I was like, oh, what is that? But yeah, I mean, back in the day, especially in the country, I don't know how it was in the city, like, but it's like if you're in the country, you didn't see nothing.
I would. Good Lord, Ted's over here.
Excuse me. What's your non-jerk-off bathroom?
I got Steve that a while back.
Awesome.
What was I going to say? But you know, we talk about not having internet or maybe not having cell phones and things like that, living in the country. But like, there was a long period of time back where my parents' house is where there were no paved roads. It was gravel roads. And also, we didn't have public water there for a long time. It was like a really long time. Like when I was real little, Mom said, you remember when we had that pond water, Dana? We literally would get the water from a pond. And I'm talking a real pond. See. But Mom said no to the pond water the minute like green, slimy stuff started coming through the faucet. She said, no, we're not having this pond water anymore. She said, I can't wash clothes. We can't take a proper bath or anything with green, mossy stuff coming through the faucet. So then Dad got a cistern, what they would call a cistern or a well or whatever you want to call it. And he had a big water truck. He would go to town literally and get water in this water truck, come put it in the cistern. And then when it almost got empty again, he'd have to go back to town, get more water, bring it back, put it in the cistern. We did that for years. Damn. And I got used to it. I mean, that's just the way it was. And then eventually enough people put in money, you know, enough people that lived out in that area were able to get together money to have them put water lines out in that area. And I'll never forget my dad saying he could not stand this one guy. There was a rich guy, I'm talking super rich for our area, who owned property out that way, but he didn't have a house there yet. So he said, I'm not paying to have water lines put out here. I ain't never going to have a house out here. And guess what? After they got water lines out there, that dude built a big old house out there. And Dad said, I can't stand that guy. He's just like, he never did like that guy because that guy was just an asshole, you know. But unfortunately, that's how some rich people, like super rich people, are.
Yeah, there was a lot of people when I grew up. There was a lot of like people who had cabins out in that area that were rich, and then there were like normal people who didn't have money. It was an odd place. I remember the weirdest thing was in high school. They would have like people would have parties out there, and they would be in the middle of nowhere, and I would hear about it, and I would actually get on my bike. This was like not 2099. And I would get on my bike with like a flashlight and like be trying to ride miles in deeper to find the party. And it would be like most of the time I'd get there right when it was over. It would be like ending and I'd just be like riding up on a bike. It was like the weirdest. I don't know. It's so hard to explain that, like being in that area, because it's just like so odd. Like I kind of get jealous of people who live in like suburban areas growing up, because I feel like, I don't know, you just have like more access to stuff, and you know,
I feel like Steve had more access to stuff. I mean, he grew up in Taylor County. He grew up in the Campbellsville area, but he was outside the city part. But still, he was close enough to things. It was like, I mean, this isn't a lot of time, but it would take my family 10 or 15 minutes to even get where any stores and restaurants and all of that stuff was, because there literally was nothing out there where they were living at. So you would generally, if you wanted to go to any, big like chain restaurants like a McDonald's or something like that, you would have to go over the river into Indiana to even do anything. Or you could go to Owensboro, which would be 30 minutes from where mom and dad live. So generally they'd rather go over to Tell City, which was about 15 minutes, than go that extra 15 minutes and have to go to Owensboro. But sometimes they would go to Owensboro. But
I'll tell you what was quite funny was Uncle Bill in the Dead Pit documentary, and he's got to cross the river and all that. I thought that was so funny. That's nothing like the truth, apparently. He was there. Does he live pretty near? He lived pretty near him, didn't he? But not, around near. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've been to Prestonsburg, to visit them and go to one of their screenings back when they had that Madman screening. Me and Steve went up there, and it didn't seem that remote. But boy, in that documentary, it looked remote.
Yeah, it's like something like the Deliverance or Southern Comfort or something.
Exactly.
They did an NWO a while back. I don't remember what it was. I was thinking about that today. I was laughing my ass off. It was like an MWO where they were talking about, Wes was talking about like he spilt some milk in his trash can and left it out there, and the neighbor was like, "You're gonna have to empty that out. That stinks." And he said it was like smelling so bad. And that's just so, I don't know. It's just their humor is like, it's hilarious to hear them like on, just because it's like, growing up around here, it's just, so many people on YouTube and horror, or it's like usually people like from California or like stuff. So that's what drew me into Dead Pit, was just like, it was kind of funny. It was like hearing like Friends or something doing it,
That's what it was like for me, because there for a little bit, I didn't even know these people were doing, that anybody was doing any podcasts. And then I started running across these different podcasts that talked about horror movies. And I don't know who exactly wrote this on Internet Movie Database. I think it was. I was reading, where people make comments and stuff. And somebody had put in their signature on IMDb, they said, if I'm not on IMDb, I'm listening to Dead Pit Radio. And I was like, what's this Dead Pit Radio? And there was a link. So I clicked on it, got to their page, and that was my whole introduction. Then I was like, dang, these guys are from Kentucky too. I mean, they're from my home state. So I started listening to them from there on out, because they were just the most interesting and informative people that I had heard at that time. And I was like, these guys know what they're talking about, and they're on the level, and they're not going to bullshit you, and they're going to tell you, the honest truth. They're not trying to get, free stuff and things like that by just saying everything's good, give me free stuff. At least they were real about what they were talking about.
Yeah,
that's why, that's why their popularity, hasn't become massive, because they will just tell you how it is, won't they? And sorry, John, go on.
Oh no, I was just saying, exact thing. That's, you nailed it. It's like they don't bullshit. I mean, like, I know I make fun of this guy all the time, but Dead Meat.
The Dead Meat.
That guy is like, okay,
that's just rubbish.
he's got great production value. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but it's just like that whole like talking head thing that those guys do, just like the guys on the old documentaries, like Ryan, what's his name? Whatever that guy's name was, Katz or something.
Ryan Rotten.
Well, him too. Like they're just, it's like they say the exact shit that we've all read or thought for a year. It's like the same thing. It's like a script. And they never said anything different. And I just, God, and then I see these guys on YouTube like that get popular. And I'm like, it's just like production. There's no meat there. You know, like the one guy who got big, who to me was like really interesting, was Video Game Nerd, Cinemassacre. I mean, now he's kind of mainstream too, but when he started, that's what made him so big. Was he was just he just did what he wanted. It was just crazy. And like you said it though, I mean, like it gets old when you hear people just say the same shit and you feel like they're not being honest. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
With
me, sorry, Dina, go on.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say, guys, if you ever notice me getting like that, somebody please take a bat and hit me upside the head or something, because I want to stay real. I don't ever want to get to the point where I'm just kind of glossing over things just because I want to, want people to like me. I feel like right now I've got enough people that like what I do. So I think that I'll just keep doing things the way that I have been doing them. I think I've got a core group of people that like to come to my stream. So that's really all I need.
Yeah, I think as long as you're enjoying it, like I said before, just carry on doing what you're doing. What I love comes through. But I was going to say my Dead Pit sort of story was I first come across him totally by chance, like yourself. What it was, I watched the film Madman, and I was just a bit curious so I went online to look at the film Madman, and obviously I wanted to know a little bit about the background and stuff like that. And I come across the Paul Eller's interview on Dead Pit, and then that was it. And I think that was 2007. After that, then I was like every week, every Friday, download the show and listen. Brilliant, like some really good days. Long time ago now, but it's good to see him back.
I think my mom got like a little, she was like, why are you listening to these guys every Friday? Why are you going into these chats every Saturday? I think she thought maybe something weird was going on there for a while, because I was just like, I don't know if she thought I was running drug money or what she thought I was doing.
The thing is, as well, you would go all week, wouldn't you? And you'd be looking forward to it all week. And it became like a bit of like an event in a way. To where you had to get your fill, you had to get your Dead Pit fix like every week.
Yeah.
The thing that I really just like about Dead Pit is it's like, I feel like everybody who is in the community, whether it's the Discord, the chats here, everybody kind of just is honest about what they are, what they like, and we don't all like the same thing. But what kills me about what I notice about the horror community and the film community now, and y'all may disagree with this, I've noticed this for like 5 years. It's like there's something happening where people do not want negativity anymore. Like if you can't have an opinion, like if you get on these Facebook groups, I'm on a few where if you're just honest, people are just like, oh yeah, don't say anything unless you're nice. And it's just like, when did that become a thing? When did it become a thing that like you can't have film criticism? Like that's like a thing now where, and I don't know if it's like, I don't mean to offend Curly Jaws, I know he's younger, but like Gen Z, I don't know what it is. It's like this thing of like, you have to like it. And if you don't like it, you got to find a reason to like it. And it's like, that was not how film was ever. I mean, it was like a film was good, a film was bad. You're objective. You say, well, you can point out good things, but if something's bad, you can say why. I mean, but now it's like, I'm in some of these groups and it's like, oh my God, like if you make fun of Rob Zombie, if you make fun of a movie, anything, people will just crucify you. And I just don't.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know.
I think as well, that's why some of these channels, they're just going to be popular. And, they're liking this, and you know what it is. They like every Halloween film, I've said it before, Scream and stuff like that. And it's just to me, it just becomes boring. You know, I like obscure films. I don't get me wrong. You know, I still want to watch reviews of new stuff and what have you. You know, but it just becomes a bit boring after a while. Same old, like Halloween. And now I'm surprised we haven't had this big run to Halloween ends now, because this time last year it was horrendous. You know, everywhere you go on the internet but it seems to not be as bad this time round. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, there's a reason. That's all. That's the marketing is very. I know what they're doing. They're keeping it under wraps for reasons. They've
Right.
only done those little teasers because they don't want people to figure out what's happening. That's why. And I think, but I agree. And YouTube, it's a lot on YouTube. But you're right, on like TV, I don't see much on TV with it. But yeah.
You know, you mentioned old Curly Jaws, something I was going to mention about him. The thing, though, I like about old Curly Jaws, and I know you guys weren't saying anything bad about him, is that he doesn't seem to get butthurt if you say anything about a movie that he likes, or, you know, that good-natured ribbing when he says things like Halloween 1978's overrated and stuff. I'm like, oh, Curly Jaws, you know, I knew you'd say that, you know. Because he's, you know, we've gotten where we know if everybody else hates it, oh, Curly Jaws is going to like it. If everybody pretty much likes it, he's probably going to hate it. But he doesn't get mad over it. He just kind of, I don't know if it's all those gummies or some weed he's smoking or what, but he just seems so mellow about it. He doesn't seem to let it bother him. These other people, it's scary how angry they get. You would almost think they would take a gun and shoot you. You don't like this movie? Well, I'm going to take you out. You know, they're just really defensive, like it's their child or something, you know. And,
Facebook is the worst for it. You know, if you don't like
is.
a film on Facebook, they'll unfriend you. They'll give you abuse. They'll private message you, and it's horrendous.
Well,
yeah, like Monsters, I saw that already, and I'm not posting anything. Like a friend of mine who's a big zombie fan, he was like, "How is it?" And I was like, I mean, I mean this. I told him, I said I'd watch it again. Like it's kind of like an entertaining train wreck in ways, but I was like, honestly, you just need to watch it. I don't know what to tell you because I don't want to offend him, but like, yeah, it's not.
As a film, it looks great, doesn't it? It looks really good. It's like in HD, but there's 2 hours. I never laugh once. It's just under 2 hours, but I never laugh once. And I know the comedy is supposed to be a little bit, you know, it's a Monsters, isn't it? You're not going to get any sort of edginess to it or anything, but it's just not funny, and there's no plot. There doesn't seem to be a plot.
It's awkward. It's really awkward in parts. Like I was just like, I don't know. It was almost like because I found it last either a week or two ago. I woke up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Sometimes that happens, and I just couldn't sleep. So I came in here and I was on one of those sites and I found it. And I was like, "What the fuck is this real?" And I clicked it and I start playing it, and I'm like, "Well, this looks real." And I'm like, "This can't be it." I was like, "Is this it?" And at 10 minutes in, I'm like, "Oh my god, this is the movie." And it's just like you said, it's not. I don't know. I mean, I'll rewatch it for sure, just because I won't buy it, but I'm curious to see it again. But the nicest way possible. No, I don't think it's a good movie at all.
The trailer actually makes it. Everyone's slagging the trailer off, but the trailer actually, you know, is a lot better than the actual film. That's all I can say really about that.
You know what I watched last night? I just took a chance and I watched that Dark Knight of the Scarecrow 2 on YouTube. And I don't know. I guess it wasn't the most horrible thing I've ever seen, but it wasn't the best thing I've ever seen either. And I would much rather go back and watch that original film because, would y'all rather I not talk about it? Are y'all thinking about watching it? Or
I don't.
No, carry on.
If I watch it, it's like I don't care. It's fine.
One thing I didn't like about it because the original, when Larry Drake played Bubba, you had sympathy for Bubba. And when they did those awful things to Bubba, you wanted Bubba to have some kind of revenge. But in this movie, you've got his cousin. You've got Bubba's cousin, and she's this old woman. And this kind of crazy kid that his mom leaves him with this woman every day when she goes to work. And at the end of the day, she comes back and picks him up. And so this weird little kid, he's weird acting. His mom comes and says, "How's it with school?" And he said something sucks. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said it sucks. And he's this little frizzy haired kid, kind of acts too young to. He seems to be too young to be so pessimistic like he is, and he's just always like, his mom will say, "Well, how are things going tonight? Leave me alone." And he'll go and get in his bed, and he just, he looks like he's maybe all of 9 or 10 years old, but he's talking to his mom like he's a teenager. When you get all teenagery and you just want your parents to leave you alone, you don't want them to ask you any questions. So you got a 9 or 10-year-old that's acting like they're 13, 14, maybe 15, and they just want to be left alone. So I thought that was weird. And then he had a real weird, almost cringy attachment to this old woman. And he called her Aunt Hildy. He wouldn't call her Mrs. or Miss whoever she was. He says, "Yeah, Aunt Hildy. I don't want to leave Aunt Hildy." And it's like, what is going on here? But anyway, this old woman she wanted people to be killed by the scarecrow. And it's like, I don't know, it just didn't have the feel of the original film. And I don't really know what J.D. Fogelson was trying to do with this one. Maybe he was trying to appeal to a wider audience or something by doing it this way, but it just seemed a little off kilter. It wasn't a horrible, horrible movie, but I don't envision myself going back and watching it again.
Huh.
So what's the connection to the original then?
The only connection I can see is the cousin is
Right.
Bubba's cousin. That's the real only connection I can see. And I didn't like her, so I liked Bubba, and I liked Bubba's mother in the original. You felt like they were being so put upon that it only stood to reason that there would be some sort of revenge, but you didn't. I don't know why there needed to be a revenge in this case, other than the old woman was going to lose her house. The person that she was making payments to was kind of a asshole, but other than that, I just didn't understand the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, I watched I was telling Steve in the thing earlier, I watched a cam I saw Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
I love Pearl.
I really like Pearl.
I definitely thought it was better than X. I mean, X is good. I just thought Pearl, there's like a little more to it.
A little more meat to it.
Yeah, just X is like, I mean, they're both good. It's just kind of what you're looking for, I guess. But I saw Barbarian, a cam of that, and that's a crazy ass movie. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but that is not it. I don't know how to. There's a movie that I'm thinking of to compare it to, not what it's about, but the feeling that I had when I don't want this to be taken literally, but the feeling that I had when I first saw the original Wrong Turn in the theater, and I didn't know anything about it, and I just walked in, didn't know anything about it. That's how I felt watching Barbarian. As I was like, "What in the hell?" Like, I don't know if y'all have seen it.
I did watch it. There was a couple of parts that I missed, but oh God, John, when Justin Long came on the screen, I was like, what in the hell?
He did good for the role.
I just can't stand that guy. I can't stand that guy in anything he's in.
Well, he did good playing that jerk because he doesn't usually play like a jerk.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, because like at the end when he does that, you're just like, wow, dude. Like,
yeah, did you really do that? Are you that much of an asshole that you would do that? But I don't know. I feel like I don't feel like people were hyping that movie up too much, but I was like, what was the deal with it? Some people were acting like it was how do I describe it? They were just like, you got to watch it, you got to watch it, you got to watch it, you know.
Well,
And I'm like, there really wasn't anything special about it, I thought.
it was the
So does it have like a Dario Argento vibe or something like that? I read about it, but I haven't really
I
looked
didn't
into it.
feel like it did.
nah.
No, I mean,
I don't want to spoil it. I mean, it's like the whole thing with it is the. I don't know how to explain it. The whole thing with the movie is what's in the house, right? Like
Mm.
that's the whole thing. Like once you see that and once you see what's going on, you're like, what the fuck is this? Like that's what I meant by the wrong turn thing when I
Yeah.
first saw that. But like, there's not really like a mood or like I mean, it's good. I wouldn't say it's like great, but it's just one of those things. It's one of those movies when you watch it, it just sticks with you. You're like, well, that was memorable. Like, I would say Pearl I would say Pearl is a way better movie. Like
Yeah.
rewatch value. Barbarian is just very much like a WTF
Mhm.
type thing. You watch it and you're like, well, that
And
was different.
yeah, and it's just for me, I think it's gonna be one and done. I don't think I'm gonna go back and rewatch it again. I don't think for me anyway, it's not gonna have any rewatchability. It was like when that first big thing happened, I don't want to give it away. Steve kind of went like this, wow, like that, you know. But then after that, we were just kind of quiet. He and I were both kind of quiet, except I was belly aching over Justin Long being in it. I was like, oh, what the hell? Why is he in here?
Oh, it's silly as hell too. When you break down the plot and you think about that, it's like the dumbest. When you really watch that movie and you think it through again, you're like, that is the stupidest thing possible they could have thought of. Like, it's really anyway. I'm not. It's worth watching, but I'm very curious to see what people's reactions are the more it gets out there and it comes out on Blu-ray and 4K.
Right.
So,
I don't know if Darren's frozen or what. I think he's frozen. I may have to add him back here in a little
sure.
bit.
What's up, Garrett? I see he joined on the chat.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I'm going to read some of these chat messages. People were just chatting away while I was blabbing here. So Cliff says, "Oh, Savage Streets Watchalong. I didn't read the description when I hit to come in. I have the blue, but haven't watched it. It's okay to be here though. Oh yeah, you can be in here. You don't necessarily have to watch it, Cliff, or you can watch it. It doesn't matter." Darky say, I still love it out there with no cell phone. A good unplugging is good for the soul. It definitely is, Dirk. I think everybody needs to do that every once in a while. Even these people that have lived their entire life in the city, I think they need to unplug at some point. Blair, you say, do people really own worm farms in the country? Well, my family never owned a worm farm, but maybe some people do. I don't know. Like National Lampoon's Vacation, I think it was Christmas Vacation, where they specifically talked about a worm farm. But Dirk says, I'm sure, Blair, people farm all kinds of stuff. I've never seen a worm farm, though.
Hopefully, I'm muted. I was trying to say something, trying to get my dog to move.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like muting myself. Hopefully, this thing is working. Otherwise, you're like, what the hell is he doing?
Well, I talk to my dogs all the time, so feel free if you want to. Cliff, you say, I have a little home away from home in the sticks to get away from the city. And that's probably a healthy thing to have, Cliff, is let's see. Dirk says, yeah, it's good to get away. Hey, TJ, you say just popping in. Cool in the woods video, Dana. Must be crazy spooky at night. Well, yeah, you'd probably have to ask my mom about that because I haven't been up there too much at night. But she definitely had to quit watching like Friday the 13th movies up there. Cliff, you say, I think old Curly might be lying when he puts down good movies and praises bad ones to get a laugh. Who knows? Okay, it looks like Darren's back. Hey, Darren.
I don't know what happened then. Did I just totally go off screen or?
Well, you froze for a little bit and then you went away, and I was waiting to add you back.
Right, it's never happened before, so I don't know.
Let's see. Hey, Garrett, you say, what's always boggled my mind about Savage Streets is that in real life, she's like 5 feet tall and she's towering over all those girls. I guess I never really thought about it in those terms.
Yeah, she's small.
Let's see. TJ, you say they always try to make Tom Cruise look taller all the time, Garrett. Gary, you say, oh, I know. It was just funny because when I met her the first time, I was like, damn, I never expected her to be so tiny and petite. Even in Roller Boogie, she doesn't seem that small. I think she was a little chunkier in Roller Boogie, wasn't she? I mean, I'm not making fun of her, but
Yeah, that and
always
Hell
thought
Night. She was a
yeah,
little
and Hell
bit
Night.
chubby.
But that was I always thought she was cute in Hell Night. That cute and bubbly. I really liked that the character.
That was probably the first thing I saw her in. Because I'm trying to remember, that came out on Video Treasures. It was either Video Treasures or Anchor Bay in the 90s on VHS. Because that's kind of how I found a lot of that stuff. As I would go get, like, back when VHS in the 90s, it kind of got a little more reasonable buying them. You could find them. And I think Hell Night was the first one I saw because it got re-released like mid-90s. And I would like talk my parents into let me buying it. I don't know. They just didn't notice, I guess, what the hell this stuff was. But
I'm trying to remember what the first thing I saw Linda Blair in. I know it wasn't The Exorcist. I'm pretty sure that was later.
Yeah.
It may have been something like Hell Night because I remember, us renting a bunch of stuff. And I remember my aunt renting Hell Night. And like, I think me and my mom watched Hell Night with her.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have very well been. But did y'all ever see that TV movie, Sweet Hostage, that she was in with Martin Sheen?
No.
That is a really, really good movie. Of course, Dad spoiled the ending for me because Dad went through this phase where he was convinced that I had seen all the movies that he had seen. He ruined Carrie for me. He told me the ending to Carrie. And that was before I was reading all the Stephen King books, so I hadn't even read the book at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Dad, you ruined it for me. And he ruined Sweet Hostage for me because he told me the ending to that. And I'm not going to give y'all the ending because you might want to go out and find that. But the basic story is that Linda Blair's character is like a teenage girl that's tired of living at home with her parents and she wants to get away. And then she gets kidnapped by Martin Sheen's character. He's this guy that escapes from a mental hospital. And he's always talking about Xanadu. And he kind of lives in his own little world. And you always think that he might get violent, but he never does. But he ends up kidnapping Linda Blair and taking her out to this little cabin, and he's got the whole woods around it booby trapped. And he will go into town and he will ask her what she needs and stuff. And he gets really angry at her this one time because she tells him a specific dress she wants to wear. And he goes and gets it. Well, in this small town, it raises eyebrows because they know this girl is missing. And so when he realized that, he said, is that why you asked me to get that dress? And he's like, don't you ever do that again, And Martin Sheen's such a good actor, and he was really young in this one. And he's just got something with it's like he's got lightning in his eyes all the time. And they're very intense. I don't know if you guys have noticed that when Martin Sheen's in a movie or not.
Yeah.
But he really has intense eyes. So when he grabs her arm in that scene and he's right up in her face, I mean, there is some kind of I'm not talking about a love chemistry, but there is a really good acting chemistry between him and Linda Blair at
Yeah.
that point because she looks scared of him. She looks terrified of him in that scene.
I
He
think
plays a weirdo though in the one with Jodie Foster. Is it the little girl with
Oh,
a China
yeah.
name?
Yeah, where
He's
he's kind of
kind of
got that
creepy in that.
pedophile vibe going on there.
Yeah.
yeah, that's that you're talking about like that was probably the thing of The Exorcist that got. I don't know. I remember when I first watched The Exorcist. I was probably about 11 or 10, which is probably a horrible idea, but I watched it on tape, and that was the thing that affected me the most about that movie was kind of like the realism of the emotions of the family. It wasn't played. It was played so like, I mean, Friedkin is just like brilliant, but it's just played so honestly, like with the mother and Reagan. And like at the end, when she comes out of it and she's crying and she's like, and then you realize like she's like a 12-year-old girl. She's just like a little girl. Like it's like all that is just so like played so earnestly to the camera and stuff. It's like people kind of forget that movie it's a shocking movie, but it's also just a brilliant movie. Like as a film, it's like I mean, it's unbelievable. I think sometimes it kind of gets underrated in that sense. People just talk about like the pea soup vomit and shit, just all the shock stuff, which is great, but that's
I think
yeah.
if they took the vomit out, the head spinning around, her masturbating with the cross,
right.
On and on and on with that stuff. If they took all that out and just had a girl maybe suffering from some kind of psychotic break or something, that movie would have made a damn good drama. Even if you took all the demon stuff out of there, but then the demon stuff just adds an extra layer to an already complicated situation because you've got the thing with her father and the mom is like got a love-hate relationship with Reagan's father. One time she'll be saying, "Oh, I loved your daddy, Reagan." And then the next thing you know, she's like, "He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't even call his daughter on her birthday when she's on the phone and she's just kind of freaking out." So that's a very complicated family dynamic, it seems.
I think it
I
would have
think
won
The
an
Exorcist.
Oscar.
Go on.
I was gonna say I think it would have won an Oscar if you took the shocking stuff out. It would have got nominated. It's just that how the Academy is. They're not going to acknowledge anything odd or strange or shocking. They don't want it. If it's political, they'll touch it. But if it's out of that realm, they don't want it. And that's,
It's kind of hard to have an argument in what's a better made film than The Exorcist. Because like John said, it's just on its own without being a horror film. It stands alone on its own. With possibly something like The Shining as it's like just as well made. But, I think there's a UK guy called Matt Commode, and he always says, that The Exorcist is his favourite film. Yeah. And people say, "Oh, well, is that your favourite horror film?" He goes, "No, it's my favourite film. It's the best film ever made." And I can't argue with that. It's right up there for me as well.
Yeah, it's one of those, I would have to call it one of those near perfect films.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like I talk about Psycho and stuff, stuff like that. Exorcist would fit into that category too. And some people would say, "Oh yeah, y'all are horror fans." Of course you're going to say that, but no. You could take all of that horror stuff out and just have a family dynamic, a family in crisis, and it would still be a near perfect movie. You could take out every special effect in that movie and it would still be good.
Yeah, you're talking about Hell Night. And I haven't watched the Blu-ray of it. I have it, but I know that there's a story about the villains in the movie, the family. I know one of them is named Andy, and then the brothers who are like the mutant offspring in the mansion. They were apparently foreigners, like German. They were like German. I don't know if they were stuntmen or something. They didn't speak a lot of English, like hardly any. And they were talking about on the behind the scenes. Apparently, I was reading about this, that they didn't understand a lot of direction. They didn't understand stuff. So it was kind of hard to work with him. And like one of them died like right after the making. I've always wanted to see more about who they were because like I can't even find pictures of them without makeup on. Like I was really, when I watched the movie like a year or two ago, I was really curious. I was like, I want to see who these guys are. Like, and you can't find anything on them. Like they're on IMDb, but it's just like, I guess it was so long ago, you know, there's nothing out there. But I wonder if the Blu-ray speaks on it anymore. I haven't watched it as far as the special features.
I've got the Blu-ray, but
I do too.
I've actually got two versions. I got the UK and the Scream Factory, and I've not really dived into the the extras. But there's another weird thing about that film is two of the stars were left millions of dollars by some fan of the film who died, and just the guy ate the Friday the 13th Part 4, Peter Barton, I think.
Yeah, Peter
and
Barton.
The other guy.
And the guy that was head of the fraternity on Hell Night, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. So that was quite weird. It's got a little bit of history, that film. And it's like a much better slasher than it gets credit for as well. You know, because it came out the same year as My Bloody Valentine, The Burning. So it gets a little bit overlooked, but it's a great film. I really like it.
And I think Hell Night starts out with a bang, too. It starts out with that scream, that shrill girl scream, and then you have the title over the top, and it's like, whoa, what are we in for right here? And then you start getting into the meat of the movie. But I sometimes like it when they do that, when you get a jolt right there at the beginning. You're not really sure what's going on at that point. Is somebody being killed already? Is some woman being raped, or what's going on here? And I like that. I appreciate that. Just giving me just one good joke right there at the beginning.
It's creepy. I mean, it's like there's even like the kills and the way they set up the kills in that movie are like, it's pretty creepy. Like when he's walking through that briar patch thing and he shines the light and then the dude stabs him. And like, I remember as a kid, I remember even as a kid, like with a VHS tape, I was like when the scene where they shoot the guy and he jumps and they shoots him and he falls down, the brother with like the beard. I remember pausing it because I was trying to figure out what he looked like. Because like if it's so dark, I would like pause it and I'd fuck with the TV settings and I'd be like, what does this guy look like? I'd try to rewatch it over and over. I was watching it with a friend when I was little and he was like, who cares? He didn't care.
But you're like, I care though.
At the start as well, you've got the gothic setting, which sets it like, apart from other slasher films. And you like the whole start within that, like, sort of mansion or big house or whatever is really atmospheric, really keeps you on the edge of it, see right the way through. And then we got, the ending as well, the whole chase sequence and all that. It's really underrated for some reason. I don't know. Don't get its due.
I think you said it gets lost in the shuffle. I mean, you got 81 is such a heavy hitter with like the Prowler and all that stuff. I mean, of that year, I love My Bloody Valentine. That's one of my favorites. But like, there's so many, and it's definitely lost in the steam of the shuffle of things. So
that's definitely my favorite year, 1981.
Oh yeah,
I'm a big slasher fan anyway. you got like the Fun House, The Burning, My Bloody Valentine, the Friday 13th Part 2, I believe, wasn't it? So there you got some big heavy hitters in that year.
I will say, I know it's not popular. I do prefer Mad Men over The Burning, but I think that like, I do think, I will say like The Burning is like a really effective movie. I just rewatch value. Like I always like something about Mad Men is just so entertaining. Like it's just like wacky, like the bathtub thing and the music and just, I don't know. There's something about it that's very charming. Like The Burning is like, It is good. It's real. It's hard for me to sometimes separate like watching it now with Harvey Weinstein because I know he wrote it. He
Yeah.
wrote a
Right.
lot of it, and I just
Yeah.
sometimes I watch it with the characters, and I'm like, yeah, he's writing himself here. Like you can kind of see
Yeah.
it, but I mean, I know it's a movie. It's ultimately I can understand how it goes either way. I'm not going to hate on it. It is good. I just like I said, I probably watch Mad Men more personally. But
Well, you know, I will agree that The Burning is a lot more mean spirited
yeah,
than Madman is.
Yeah.
But I think that's what they were maybe going for with that movie. And
Mhm.
perhaps when they made Madman, they were going for a little, maybe they weren't, but maybe they were going for a little bit of a goofy, more lighthearted element to be in there. And
Oh
then
yeah,
when they made The Burning, it's like, no, we got Tom Savini here. We're gonna go all out, and this guy is gonna mean business all the way. He's gonna be very sadistic with how he's killing these kids off.
Mhm.
And they knew that Tom Savini had done stuff with Friday the 13th. So even though that wasn't Tom Savini's forte, I mean, Tom Savini said over and over again, he would have rather made creatures, and
Yeah.
stuff like that than be going around figuring out how to kill teenagers, how to stab them and make a bunch of blood, and how to cut people's heads off and blow their heads off and different things. But he's good at it though. That's the problem. He was in Vietnam. He was a photographer, a combat photographer in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So he said that he saw anatomically correct gore, but he was seeing it through a camera lens, which helped kind of, it didn't shield him all the way, but it shielded him a little bit, where it was almost like looking through a movie camera. And so I
Yeah.
think that's the big reason why he's so good at what he was able to do for so many years.
Yeah, Mad Men is definitely sillier. I mean, like that scene where the hood of the truck cuts the girl's head off. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, what is it, like a razor blade attached to the hood? I'm like, it just the liberty. That's the kind of stuff where like that's just you can't help but like laugh and like that stuff sometimes
And
because it's so
those
silly.
the counselors, that whole scene, remember that scene where they're all laying, like one's laying this way, one's laying that way. Why in the heck are they doing that?
Oh yeah,
Who lays there and just like, let's lay here zigzag like this and talk to each other? It's
yeah. The guy when he gets the
bizarre.
knife and he's like, "You don't know who I am." Yeah,
It's like that
Yeah.
whole scene.
yeah.
Oh,
The
God.
And then you
burning.
got that hot tub scene as well, which is just comedy gold. Absolute comedy
Yes.
gold.
It is.
And the
It's
song as
wonderful.
well. Didn't the lead actor, is it Tony Fish, actually sing that song as well?
Oh,
He
did he?
may
Wow.
Yeah.
he may have.
Not that I'm not on about the theme at the end of the film. I'm about the actual song during the hot tub
Yeah.
scene. I'm sure he did.
Uh-huh.
That's
Sure, I
so
read
funny.
that somewhere. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
cheese.
Doesn't
So-
Galen Ross like not like talking about that stuff? Does she talk about because she was in she was in Madman, Dawn of the Dead, and Creepshow, right?
Mm-hmm.
But does she?
I heard that, so she wouldn't sign nothing,
Yeah, I
posters or
heard she
anything.
wouldn't sign Madman stuff.
But
and
I
she
think
does-
recently she started to talk about it. But
Okay.
so I don't know. I don't know if it's because of that, hot tub scene where you kind of see some flesh, and maybe she didn't like that at the time.
Mhm.
That's what I'm guessing, but I don't know.
or maybe she felt like maybe, even though it was after Dawn of the Dead, maybe she thought her acting wasn't up to snuff, but I don't
But
know.
it wasn't in Dawn of the Dead, though, was it? Either I thought her acting
No,
was
she
awful.
hadn't gotten to. Probably her best role was probably that creep show role, and she wasn't. She spent a lot of that time being buried up to her neck
Yeah.
in sand and getting covered over with water, and then she was covered with seaweed and special makeup effects to go after Leslie Nielsen and that. But I still think that was probably her best acted role because she seemed to be able to emote at
Yeah.
that point. She wasn't so stiff, and she didn't seem to really be able to act until that point, in my opinion.
That
She
was so confusing as a kid watching Creep Show, like especially like because I was watching Cheers and the Naked Gun movies at the same time, like early '90s, and like I'm watching that, and then I see Creep Show, and I'm seeing Ted Danson and Leslie Nielsen, and I'm like, Ted Danson's acting like a piece of shit. Leslie Nielsen is a piece of shit, and I'm like, that just did not equate in my mind at all. Like I remember I watched that. It was like my dad was watching it, and he was like, "Yeah, it's funny, huh?" And I was like, "I don't get this. I don't understand why he's." Because you just don't expect that. But of course, later I got it as I got older. Like he's an
Right.
actor, but it's like when you're a kid, you sort of
You don't get that
you
character.
just think when someone plays something like they kind of become that archetype character in your mind. You
Mhm.
just can't imagine them doing anything else, So like
And
Jim Varney, you see Jim
oh
Varney
yeah,
and you think he's earnest, but then as you're older, you're like, no, he's an actor. He just so happened to be earnest a lot. But
it was like I'm a huge Ted Raimi fan. Y'all have heard me talk about Ted Raimi before. I love that guy. But he played such goofy characters early on. I mean, with the exception of like playing Henrietta, the Henrietta monster or demon in Evil Dead 2, which you didn't really get to see Ted Raimi's face. At that point, he was under so much latex and stuff. But most of the time, like if you watched him in Xena Warrior Princess as Joxer, if you seen him in Hercules The Legendary Journeys as Joxer, he was always this goofy, lovable guy who wanted to be a warrior, but he was just so clumsy and couldn't get it together, except when it really counted. And then he was the warrior wannabe with a heart of gold, and I love that. So the first time I saw him in the movie Skinner, I was like, holy crap. It's like he's like skinning people and putting their skins on and running around. He's doing like the Ed Gein thing here. And he was so sadistic and evil in that movie. I said, well, I can say one thing for Ted Raimi. He's an excellent actor because he can pull this crazy act off, but he can also be a lovable, funny type of guy. And Steve's been playing that Quarry game. I don't know if y'all played that for the PlayStation 5 or whatever.
I know of it, but I don't play it.
I mean,
Yeah, same. I know of it.
it's a good game, but Steve's like, oh, Ted Raimi showed up in here, Dana, in the game. And so I was walking in there where he's playing the game, and Ted Raimi plays a cop on it. And at first, he seems like, is this going to be some sadistic cop that's going to like take this guy he's got in the jail cell out and like molest him out in the woods or something? Because he seems really evil, and like, so there's some kind of weird undercurrent going on with him. But he's really good in that too. And that game is really well made. I will say that. I don't play too many video games, but I'm wanting
Isn't there an option in that game to actually watch it as a movie?
Yeah, Steve told me there was. Yeah,
that would be quite good. Cool to watch, actually.
It just takes so much
I'm not a
time.
big gamer, like.
And it's like a choose your own adventure thing. It's like you make choices in the game because it'll kind of like put these two choices up there. Do you tell this person off, or you just go along with what they want you to do? And then based on that choice, that moves the story along in whatever direction it's going to go. Based on, if you pick one choice, it's going to go one way. If you pick the other choice, it's going to go a totally different way. So I thought that was an interesting concept. Guys, I mean, we can continue to chat even with the movie being on, but I'm looking at the clock and it's a little after 8. So I'm going to go through these comments real quick, and then we're going to get our movies queued up and start. And like I said, we don't have to stay on the movie all the time. We can talk about whatever. But I just want people to think. I don't want them to think, oh, they're not gonna. They're never gonna talk about this movie. So let's see. So Garrett says, I'm a big Blair fan. Always liked her stuff back then. Cliff says, yeah, me too. And evidently Garrett's seen Sweet Hostage. He said it's cool. She wasn't that teenage alcoholic. So wasn't that teenage alcoholic when she did. No, that was the other one. What was it called? Sarah T or something like that? I don't know. It was something like
Yeah,
that.
she did like a prison film as well in the
Yeah, I
late
have that
70s.
one. Gosh, what was that one called? Born Innocent or Born?
That's right, yeah, Born Innocent.
Okay. Yeah, that one was really rough to watch. That whole broom handle rape scene.
Mm.
And I think that was shown on TV at one time. I think that was the big deal with that one.
Why do y'all think that? I didn't mean to diverge much.
Oh,
but,
no, that's okay.
Why do y'all think that? And this is my opinion, but Linda Blair versus Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, I think Jamie Lee's a better actress, but why do you think Linda Blair never became the star that Jamie Lee Curtis did? Like, what was the difference, really, in your opinion?
I honestly think Linda Blair didn't want to be. Maybe I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think Linda Blair had. This is not meant to sound dirty or anything. I literally think she had her hands in a lot of pies. You know what I mean? I mean, she had a very young relationship with Rick Springfield. I never really understood that relationship, and it was sort of weird. Why would somebody as old as he was at the time be messing around with her? And
Mm-hmm.
but that's none of my business. That's neither here nor there. But I don't think she was really interested in becoming anything bigger. I just get that vibe from her. I think she always had something on the back burner that she would rather be working on rather than elevating herself all the way up in these movies. I think she played the game for a while and she did some good movies and she put out some good performances or great performances. And then I think she just was like, I did this. Now I'm going to go, try to do something else. And there were times too that I felt like she might have been a little bit embarrassed by stuff that she had been in. Like, I don't know if it was an act mostly, but did anybody ever see her on one of Joe Bob's shows, not the last drive-in show, but one of the older shows? I don't know if it was drive-in theater or what, but he had her on there. And that was the most awkward thing I have ever seen because everything Joe Bob asked her about as far as her movie, she would act like she couldn't remember it. He's like, remember when you was in whatever movie you was talking about? No, I don't remember that. And so I got the feeling that part of it might have been an act and part of it was, heck, she really didn't remember. I don't know. Maybe she was doing a bunch of drugs then, or she was drinking too much booze or something like that. I don't know what it
I think that's why I think Dana just hit the nail on the head. I think she got to a point, after The Exorcist, she'd made some good stuff in the 70s, TV movies and that. And I think, she just got in with the wrong crowd with the drugs and
she got in with Rick James and
yeah, absolutely. And then after that, she just seemed to lose the ability to act. It's like she's terrible in a lot of, almost all the stuff that followed. Yeah. Even Hell No, I think she's okay. She does a pretty good job at what she does, but she's not great. And it's a weird one. Yeah, I just think, just drugs got that.
They say cocaine's a hell of a drug, and I bet she was doing a lot of cocaine when she was hanging out with Rick James.
Well, 1974, I feel like at that time, most people, and I know this happens to a lot of child actors, but when she got nominated for an Oscar for The Exorcist, I feel like at that time, there were probably so many people in the industry who were like, you're going to just fucking... Like, you're going to be the
Mhm.
next Jodie Foster or whatever, right? You're going to be just like, and it is weird. Like you said, because I remember she was in Scream. I remember that was like one of the bigger
Mhm.
things she was in later. She was like randomly in Scream. And I remember even as a kid, I was like, why is Linda Blair in this? It was like, but it is so weird because their careers, like, they both started out really young, but
Mhm.
it does feel like everything y'all were saying. And Jamie Lee Curtis probably is just a better actress. I mean, she seems like
Yeah,
she
yeah.
has a natural talent for it, but the
Mhm.
drugs and everything, like y'all were saying, I think that's probably a big part.
Yeah,
of it.
I think
It didn't help.
definitely. It could have gone either way for Linda Blair. She could have gone on to a good career like Jamie Lee, but it just didn't happen. And
I'm just
Jamie Lee, I think, is more of a natural actress as well. I think
Mhm.
she's a much, much bigger talent.
I'm wondering too sometimes if, even though technically Jamie Lee Curtis is from a Hollywood family, coming from Janet Leigh and Tony
Mm.
Curtis, having two very famous parents, I just feel like maybe she was sheltered or shielded a little bit more than some of these other actresses that kind of just exploded and then kind of burned out real quickly. Like Drew Barrymore over the years. I read a document, or not a documentary, a biography on Drew Barrymore. It's been a lot of years ago, and I was so sad reading that because I was like, why did they do this to this child? Because Drew Barrymore, or why did they allow it?
Yeah.
Because in that book, she says that at like 9 years old, she was going to Hollywood parties and they were giving her alcohol. And
Yikes.
God knows what else they were giving that child.
Wow.
And so there was a time period when Drew Barrymore just seemed to lose her freaking mind. Did y'all ever see that when she was on one of those nightly shows? I can't remember which one it was
Yeah.
now. And she lifted up her shirt and was showing her boobs to the host.
Oh, I've seen that.
I'm like, what in the world? And then she got quiet for a little bit, and then she kind of made a comeback.
Yeah.
And I was seeing her in things like The Wedding Singer, which I love her and Adam Sandler in The Wedding Singer. And now she seems to have, you hear things about her here and there, but you don't hear these really wild and audacious things that she's doing anymore. I think she had a good career going as a young actress, and she kind of burned herself out a little bit by getting into that Hollywood scene. And, I think she probably dated several different guys during that time period. And probably not all those were good choices about who she was with. But I just don't feel like Drew Barrymore had like the shielding that like maybe somebody like Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis seemed to have a more proper upbringing or something.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore, she's now, I think she's got that TV show now. It's like Ellen. She's kind of like, her career is kind of like done this a lot because she did a lot of those romantic comedies like 50 First Dates and, all that stuff. And then it is weird. Like, I feel like now she's probably doing great. I mean, in a good place, but she's one of the, she could have easily been like a Corey Feldman, though. Like Corey Feldman,
yes.
where you're just at the top of the world and you're just, I mean, it's sad.
It's like, has any one of you got her on Facebook at all?
Mm-mm.
No, I don't believe so.
I've got her on Facebook, and she seems really, like John just said, really content and like totally calmed down. And she seems quite, she's loving life basically.
I do think she's at a good place now. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to see.
And I know a lot of people make jokes about Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. And, even though Corey Haim has since passed away, and I think that's a great tragedy what happened to Corey Haim, because that guy could have had a really awesome career ahead of him. And I don't know what is. I always like Corey Feldman too. I know people make jokes about him too, and how much of a crazy ass he is. Steve's always talking. He says Corey Feldman's a nut job, but I don't know what happened to Corey Feldman. I mean, obviously something happened, and
His
something happened.
parents.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was probably a
He
lot
was
of it.
his mom. He did an interview. Sorry, I didn't mean that. His
Oh
mom
no,
and dad. He did an interview on Steve-O. Steve-O's got a podcast now, which oddly enough, Steve-O from Jackass is actually a really pretty level-headed guy now. Like he's like normal, and he does these like video podcasts. He had Feldman on, and Feldman was talking about like how like his mom and dad were on sets, and how he just didn't have anybody. But his mom would kind of meet new people, and they would get him into drugs, and they try to use him for stuff. And yeah, they just never had a chance. I mean, it was like him and Haim, they were just in the wrong place around these sharks. And it's like they were just given what I mean, Feldman was doing cocaine when he was like 15. And I mean, it was just so sad. And then Haim got that abuse stuff where he was molested. And I mean, I think Feldman was too. I mean, I love like Corey Feldman. I know he's crazy. I love Corey Feldman. Like
I do too. I still,
I mean,
I would still watch the guy in something. If he, if he had a movie coming out, I would watch it.
Oh yeah, I would. He's still one that like if he comes anywhere near, I'd like to meet him. Just because like he's always just been one of those guys that's so interesting. Even though I mean I know he's wacky, and I know like the whole documentary thing. He's kind of crazy now, and I get it. I do feel sorry for him because it's just like when you think about what they probably went through, it's so different than like the upbringing of like normal children and like what kids go through. Like it's hard to, it's easy to look at people like that and be like, they're just morons. But it's like, well, I don't know. Like if I went through what he went through, I don't know if I'd be a normal person, honestly.
Well, let me ask you guys this, and you don't have to answer if you don't feel comfortable answering it. But based on the last kind of public thing that Corey Feldman did, where he revealed who supposedly was supposed to have molested Corey Haim, do y'all believe that it was Charlie Sheen that did it?
Oh yeah, that was out there. That was what was weird. That was out there. He had already said that and hinted that forever. And I was kind of confused because he had been kind of putting that there about the whole Lucas thing.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh yeah. And then he said it. And I remember when that happened, I was like, that's not really new. He acted like it was going to be like
earth shattering. Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't want to put anybody's name in it, but he acted like it was going to be like someone like Steven Spielberg, or not like someone big, like where you're like, holy
big.
shit.
Yeah, that's what, because I forgot what it was that I was watching.
Is it Dominic Braska you're going to say, Dina?
Well, there was talk for a time about Dominic Brasha, but where I didn't hear Feldman say that. I heard, I'm not saying Feldman didn't say it at one time, but I just didn't hear it from him. I was looking at something that was written on Facebook by a guy that supposedly knew Corey Haim's family. He knew his mom real well and everything. And he was like somebody that was Corey Haim's age. So I don't know why he was so cushy with Corey Haim's mom. That just seemed kind of weird. But anyway, that guy said he put it all over Facebook. I think after Dominic Brasha passed away, that Dominic Brasha was the one that raped Corey Haim, and he knew it because of what Corey Haim's mom had told him. And I'm like, I don't know. So you've got all these things floating around out there. You got, some people said it was Dominic Brasha. Some people said it was Charlie Sheen. Some people said it was this person, that person. Some people said it was multiple people. Corey Feldman's kind of hinted that they were molested. They were both molested several times by different people. You know, I forget who that guy was that he talked about that would have the kids, all these stars,
Yeah.
kid stars over for
Mhm.
parties, and they even hinted that he was, well, no, they didn't hint. They said, yeah, he was messing around with a lot of the young boys at least. And
The only
I
thing I don't like about that with Feldman is he's kind of cashing in on it now, which I think is
Exactly.
a little bit wrong. To where you should have just come out, a few years ago without the
right,
documentary, without making money, and maybe took these
yeah.
people to task, like the ones that's still alive anyway. But no,
Mhm.
he seemed to be all about the money, which I found a little bit sad.
That's probably the only place he can get money now because things are so,
Yeah,
bless his heart, things are so messed up for him.
he
Somebody,
did do that Fanboy 13 though, and he was kind of the best thing in that film.
Yeah,
It's
Oh,
a
yeah,
yeah.
terrible
probably
film.
was the best thing about
It's a
I
terrible
saw
film,
that.
but he was the best thing. Go
Yeah,
on anyway, sorry.
oh no, yeah, I agree. He cashes in, which is kind of like slimy because it feel like, I mean, it's weird that he does that. And I think there was an article, and you guys can look it up. It's a few years old. There used to be these articles. I don't remember if it was Deadspin who did it, but there was this reporter, and he somehow figured out a way to go to these parties that Feldman was throwing. It was like these bunny parties, and this wasn't like,
that.
oh,
All
this was
right.
like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And what Feldman would have these parties at his mansion where he would have these people come, the Playboy bunnies, and it would just be like a party, nothing crazy, just like a party. And he wrote like this whole thing on it, beginning to end, like what happened. And it's like the weirdest thing to read. It's like, because he's talking about like he gets there and Feldman's not there, and he looks up in the window and he can still Feldman's up there like combing his hair, and then like everyone's just kind of standing around, nothing's happening, and then at like an hour before the end of the party, Feldman kind of comes outside and waves and then goes inside. And he was just like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever been to. And he wrote this whole like thing about it. And Feldman apparently got mad at him and was like, why are you making fun of my stuff? And it was just, you should really read about it. Just look up Deadspin, Corey Feldman.
Yeah. Did you
But
also see that he went on the road, didn't he, with a load of girls he called his angels, I think it was.
Yes.
And
Corey's Angels, yeah.
they said that he absolutely treated them like shit. He didn't pay them enough money, and expected sexual favors and stuff like that. And allegedly, I will say, but yeah, apparently he wasn't the nice guy you think he is. But you'd have to judge for yourself. I'd love to meet him anyway, like John said, but make your own sort of opinion up.
Did y'all ever hear about supposedly Anthony Edwards was another actor that got molested? And I don't hear a lot about this, but there was like when there was the big blow up about Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. I mean, I know there's been several big blow ups, but I think this was just about the time that Corey Haim passed away. That I was reading something, I can't remember what it was I was reading now, but you may be able to look it up, where somebody that knew Anthony Edwards said that he just finally broke down crying one day, saying that he felt like he couldn't talk about it, but then he had to tell somebody that when he was a lot younger, he was molested.
Weird.
By somebody in Hollywood, So there's God knows how many people have been, had things done to them.
But didn't the guy as well in Return of the Living Dead, is it, and The Last American Virgin, Brian Peck, wasn't he something to do with all that as well? I think he's got like a dodgy past.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think he either went to prison for sexual molesting children. I know I was quite shocked because I love The Last American Virgin and obviously Return of the Living Dead, and
Yeah,
I sort of looked it up one day and found out all sorts of stuff that I didn't want to read.
Yeah, I do that with a lot of people. It's like I know this is music and not movies, but I've always been a huge fan of John Lennon. I not only his Beatles stuff, but his solo work. So there have been so many contradictory stories over the years about John Lennon, and I'm sure Darren's probably heard some of these stories, if not all of them too. You know, a lot of people say John Lennon was a really good guy down deep. He was soft hearted. He cared about people. The Imagine film that actually him and Yoko did, but
Mhm.
there's one scene in that where John invites a guy in, some homeless guy that's been living out in his garden. He's like, man, what are you doing out there? And the guy's like, basically, he doesn't have anywhere to go and he's dirty and everything. But John invites him into his big old mansion of a house and gives him some food and stuff. So I mean, you kind of get the feeling that he was a good person down deep, but then you got other people that kind of write these exposés on like the Beatles and either, you know, when they were the Beatles and when they were separate and doing their solo careers, and they just seem like they want to dig up any dirt because that's what'll sell books. And so I've seen some really bad stuff be told about John Lennon, especially. I mean, some unsavory stuff about the
Hmm.
others, but mostly it's John that they want to focus on. And so it gets to the point where you don't know what's real, what's not, what's you know, what's to keep somebody from getting pissed because John Lennon didn't give them the amount of money they wanted? What's to keep them from going around and telling lies about him? The guy's been in his grave for how many years now? You know,
Right.
he can't defend himself. And I don't even know if he'd want to try. He didn't seem to be the type of guy that would. I think later on in his career, right before he died, I think he was just content with making music when he wanted to and for everybody to leave him alone, pretty much.
I
For
don't
some
think
reason,
any of that stuff stuck in the UK with John Lennon. I think his reputation's still really good here.
Is it?
So yeah, I have read little bits here and there, but yeah, his reputation's really good. Yeah.
yeah, I don't, I don't know how y'all think about this, but like with Paul McCartney, and I think it's probably just, I mean, there's so many. I'm not going to get into this hardcore, but I know there's so many conspiracy theories about Paul McCartney. You can go down the rabbit hole with that, but
Right.
I just, for some reason, and I don't know if it's like a Mandela effect thing, but whenever I see Paul McCartney in the news or even anything about him new, it's weird because I just feel like it's weird that he's alive. It's like weird he's not dead. I don't know why. There's just something in my brain that's like doesn't process. Like it's almost like, didn't this guy die? But then I know he didn't. It's like, and I wonder if it's just like the seeping of like the conspiracy things in my head that like start producing these. I don't know. I don't know if y'all think that when y'all see Paul McCartney, but whenever I see him on like a news show or something, I'm just always like, oh yeah, he's still alive. I forgot, you know?
Wasn't he
Yeah.
supposed to have been swapped and like a body double, or and the Paul McCartney now was not the real one?
Yeah,
like that.
that was the story.
That's
Yeah.
strange, very strange. But he
Mm.
done a big festival the last year or two, Glastonbury, and he was awful. I mean, you can Google that, you can watch it on YouTube. He sounded terrible. He got
Really?
absolutely slated over here for his
Now,
performance.
this has been a few years back, but Steve took me to a Paul McCartney concert, my one and only Paul McCartney concert I ever got to go to. And he was playing in Lexington. And that time he put on a hell of a good show. So I'm not sure what happened between then and
Yeah,
now,
maybe
more
his age. I don't know how
recent.
long ago that was. Maybe his age has caught up with him a little bit.
Yeah, it's been several years now when I went.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, he did his classics, and Steve really liked it when he did Live and Let Die because Steve's a huge James Bond fan, and they had the fireworks going off, and he really sang that good and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, um,
Interesting. Yeah, it's weird. I don't even know he came to the South. Like he's one of those that's just. It seems like he's so famous. Like I can't even imagine him coming to like. I mean, I guess I could see him coming to Atlanta, but I don't know. I knew that like the Beatles back in the day, they played in Memphis. They played at the Mid-South Coliseum like in the 60s, which is just crazy as hell to think about like that happened. But it's some of those artists when they're that big, it's like weird to think that they even come local because they're just so famous. Like, why would they? But I guess when they're trying, when they're on that money train, I mean, Elton John's doing it now, like he's touring the U.S. They're gonna cash in on that final tour.
I got to see Elton John the last time he was in town, and Elton John put on a hell of a good show. And then several years before that, I saw Rod Stewart, and Rod Stewart was still putting on a hell of a good show. I was like, Rod Stewart still got it. I mean, I don't know if he does now, but he did a few years back when I saw him.
Oh, he did the Queen's, the Queen back in, before she passed away. They had this big sort of concert for her, and Rod Stewart did that. And again, I've always loved Rod Stewart, but he didn't sound like his usual self.
Well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get things queued up here, and because Darren might go to sleep on us if we.
Sorry,
look at the time now.
No, that's fine.
It's the weekend. It's fine. Don't worry.
So again, I've got mine queued up on a motion picture marketing release. So, John, do you have yours queued up, and Darren?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll ask everybody in the chat, and I'll wait a minute or two. If you guys are going to be watching the movie with us, we want to make sure everybody's queued up. Texas, are you going to be watching it with us? I know usually Texas likes to know what the link is for the movie. But I'll give them a minute or so, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And then if anybody else wants to be added, we had several more last time because Wes was on here, and I think Dirk was on here. I don't know if Dirk tuned out. He was talking a little bit earlier. I don't know.
I think he's got a big stream coming up later, so maybe he's trying.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, getting prepared for that probably.
Yeah. Forgot about that. So I'm not. Okay, Texas said yes. He says he's watching his Blu-ray. So I'm going to go ahead and do the 3, 2, 1. So 3, 2, 1, play. And I am going to turn my sound down because.
Yeah, I've got it on mute, but I know this film like off by hand.
Oh yeah, this is a film I've watched probably way too many times.
I'm not sure I've seen this all the way through. I've seen
really?
a lot of it. It's one of those movies that if I've seen it, it's been so long. I've seen clips, but I just don't remember if I've watched it all the way, everything on it.
Oh God, you need to do, like not in this environment, but maybe when you're on your own or your girlfriend or wife or whatever, and sit down and watch it like with headphones on, get the music experience and everything. Fantastic.
Yeah, because Linnea Quigley's in this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. You're going to see a guy here. This is Johnny Vinokur. And Johnny Vinokur, remember when we did the Evil Laugh watch along? He was in a really small part in Evil Laugh as like helping the sheriff out. I guess he was like a deputy or something. He has a much bigger part in this one, though.
Yeah,
we mentioned him. He looks like Al Pacino on me.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say that's that guy that came to the door. That's the sheriff that's the cop from Friday Part 2.
Right.
Oh yeah.
The guy that's like stumbles in the cabin.
Yeah.
The cast of this film is fantastic.
Oh yeah, perfect.
They just nailed it.
You can really believe these guys would be these sadistic punks. I hate.
And if you get a chance, I'm sure Dana has, but if you get a chance, John, is to hear the commentary from Danny Steinman.
Oh man,
but it's fantastic, I tell you. well worth listening to.
The guy that just put the cigarette out on his hand, this guy is kind of scary. You can kind of almost believe that he's that evil.
Yeah, he's recently passed away as well, which is sad.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But he turned up in, like, I was watching some TV cop shows from the 80s, I think Cagney and Lacey maybe, and he turned up in one of the episodes of that. So I think funny.
This has got to be Linnea Quigley's most chaste role ever.
I think it's her best performance, even though she doesn't utter a word.
Yeah, because she really has to work harder because the character is not supposed to be able to talk or anything. And there may be commercials in this, guys. If you're watching it on YouTube, I just had
I had one like straight after it started. I had a commercial, but I'm pretty much out.
Yeah, it does seem like this is more for her to work with, because it seems like a lot of her roles are very. I mean, I don't want to say she's a bad actress, but it's like she's clearly just like the what do you call it, the eye candy in the movies, right? She's like in Witch Trap, and then in Return of the Living Dead. She's always like the take your top off type thing, and I mean, I don't want to say that's her fault. I mean, she probably just wasn't given a lot to work with usually, but.
No, I've read kind of like a biography. She did a book. I guess it was a self-published book called Bio and Chainsaw a long time ago. And another one, I'm Screaming as Fast as I Can. And she talks about her early career when she was doing modeling and stuff. And she talks about being a shy girl and the first time she had to take her clothes off, how uncomfortable it was, and how she did feel like for a while that's all people wanted her to do was take her clothes off. So I kind of felt bad for her. I also interviewed her for my fanzine a long time ago as well.
Interesting.
She obviously had the boob job like in between this. Or straight after this, I would imagine, because Silent Night, Deadly Night's the same year, and she's obviously, had it done by then. So it couldn't have been much of a time gap between the two.
No, I wouldn't.
But she must have had that boob operation to, obviously get the roles of the Scream Queen and topless, scenes, which is a shame in a way because she shows that she can actually act in this film, which we don't really get to see in a lot after,
She also talked about early on, and I think she talked about this when I did the interview with her, the first convention she ever went to, I think it may have been a Fangoria convention. She hid out in the bathroom during the first part of it because she was just so terrified and she didn't think anybody would want to meet her.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, it's not really fair to compare the two, but like it's so easy to compare her and Barbara Crampton, like in that time period. And like Barbara Crampton definitely had more. It seems like she had more opportunity to do acting in her movies. I mean, she did show skin, but it definitely felt like with her roles, they wrote them to where it's like, okay, well, you actually have to do something here. And with Linnea, it was like, okay, well, you're not going to do much. You're just going to do this. And that is kind of hard as an actor. I mean, you have to wonder, like, in a certain point, like, later on in life, when you, like, because these people, when they start out, I'm sure they just want to be actors. And, you got to do what you got to do, but you get typecast into this thing where you have to be this thing. And this is what they expect. And I imagine that's probably frustrating, especially for women in the 80s when they're trying to do stuff,
Yeah, you want to be a serious actress in a lot of ways, and somebody's just saying, "Take off your top and show us your boobs,"
Right.
I would just imagine that could be very frustrating,
especially then because it was just misogyny times 100. I mean, no one cared. It was it was all that was the way that was the game. Nowadays it's different, but back then you had all those people who were just. I'm sure it was even worse.
This is definitely
Friday the 13th connection. Sorry, Dina. A Friday the 13th
okay.
connection there is one of the girls is the actual nurse in Friday Part 4 with Axel at the start of the film.
Oh, I had forgotten about that. Yeah.
The one who has the wedding, or getting prepared for the wedding a little bit later on.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this guy, the main guy, the main villain, he definitely has a look. He has a good look for that, like being sinister.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't look like, I can't, like when I remember when I do remember seeing, because like I said, I'm not sure if I've seen all this, but I remember when I saw him initially, like in like clips of this years ago, I would get him confused with, what's his name? Nick Cassavetes. The guy who was in The Wraith, because like for some reason they just both had that like vibe about them in these movies, and so I think I kind of switched them up in my head, but it's definitely not the same guy.
Right.
I don't know where you are in the film now because I've had a couple of ads, but the guy now with the girlfriend, with the blonde girlfriend, was a world championship winning boxer at the time. I remember Danny Steinman saying that. And you can tell if you look at his face, like with his nose being broke.
Wow.
And this girl here, the blonde, the guy's girlfriend, she's definitely in here because of her boobs, I think.
Yeah, I think she's even on one of the posters in this scene.
I believe so. Yeah, there went another ad in mine. I think these ads are in different spots.
Yeah, so eventually I think we'll all come together and they'll be roughly around the same time.
Danny Steinman was just an interesting guy.
Oh,
he just had like it's crazy reading about stuff about him and just how he was, and I don't know. It seems like he made it feels like he made some really good. I mean, he definitely made some good movies, but it feels like behind the scenes he was just like, I don't know. It's a lot of stories you read about,
Oh yeah, coming from a porn background as well. I'm surprised he didn't make as many films, after, really. Have you seen, I know Dana has, have you seen The Unseen, John?
Yeah. Oh, the one with,
Barbara Bach.
Yeah. And the guy from...
Sidney Lazick, I think.
Yeah. He's the big guy in, what's it called? Animal House. He's one of the guys in Animal House. Yeah, that's a good movie.
Yes, definitely. And obviously Friday 5 is my favourite Friday. But look at it, just looking at the cast, even, the lesser known cast and stuff in this film, it's just superb. They just nailed it. And Steinman said the guy as well, the one guy in the main gang, Red, said he was just as creepy, as, off camera as he was on.
Yeah, that guy freaks me out.
You can see like there's something about him.
You said Barbara Bach. My dad was all about some Barbara Bach when I was little. That and freaking Adrian Barbeau. He loved Adrian Barbeau. He's always like, anytime she was in a movie on TV, he's like, "Oh, you got to watch this."
I think my dad liked Adrian Barbeau too.
See, she never done it for me, Adrian Barbeau. I don't know why. Just never really did anything for me.
Well, the thing about Adrian Barbeau is like the first thing I remember seeing her in was Creepshow.
Yeah.
And she was, I don't know, she just didn't have that sex appeal on Creepshow. Of course, she was supposed to be this naggy, bitchy wife that you wanted to kill.
You want her to die in that movie.
Basically. But then later I saw her in things like The Fall, where she was Stevie Wayne and she had that sexy voice and stuff. So I can see how it could go either way with her.
Yeah, I think The Fog is like her best act. Like, I think she's really good in that. Like, Escape from New York, she's good. She's not really. I mean, she's good. She's not like great in it, but she does pretty good in the movie. Of course, she's up against a lot of other people in that movie, so she doesn't really stand out. But yeah,
She's good in the Creep Show as well, in The Crate. Like, she just
Yes.
plays that character really well.
mm-hmm. Yeah. I always, as a kid, I was always like, that was like the first thing I saw her in was Escape from New York, and I was just always so baffled why she just wanted to stand there and die shooting at the Duke when he's driving. I was like, why would you do that? Just run, get the fuck out of there! Like, as a
Are
kid,
you guys in the
you know,
gymnasium now on the film?
Yeah. Well, I just went to the guy at the locker and.
But there's one girl, I think she's dressed in pink, that Danny Steinman said he was trying to get. He was doing everything he possibly could to get her topless in the film, and she wouldn't do it. And then Sod's Law, he seen her like a year or so later, and she's completely topless in some other film.
Yeah. Oh, there's John Vernon.
yeah.
John Vernon's great in this too.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I actually got one of those shirts when T-Shirt Joe had them, the Go Fucking Iceberg shirts.
Yeah.
But Steve won't let. Steve never wants me to like. I understand that he doesn't want me like wearing it out if we go to a family outing or something like that. But I don't even think he wants me to wear it to a convention even. So
It's a shame he didn't have a little bit more to do, like, in this film.
mm-hmm. But I was going to say this is a really good HD print of this movie. At least looking at it on my computer, it is. It looks really good.
It does.
Yeah, it's got to be sourced off the Blu-ray, I would imagine.
I need to buy more stuff from T-Shirt Joe. I always forget he's got all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And his stuff is reasonable. I'm not saying I don't like fright rags and stuff, but I think honestly, I think places like that, fright rags, cavity colors, all those different places. I think gutter garbs, they all basically have the same prices on things. Don't you guys think that they would sell even more shirts if they'd make them just a little bit cheaper?
I don't even get on those because I knew. Are they expensive? Because see, like 80s tees is where I used to go back in the day, and that shit was always like $40 for a t-shirt, and I was like,
you're talking
like,
about 30 to $35 for a t-shirt.
Yeah, that's just not. I mean, I love that stuff, but like, I'm not paying that much for a t-shirt. That's why I love the Dead Pit store, because you can they run those sales, and it's not that bad for their stuff. But I agree.
My gosh, yeah, T Public has 35% off sales all the time.
Yeah, I need to check them. I never get on those sites because I just kind of assumed they were overpriced anyway. But
they are.
Oh no, like, go on, sorry.
I was just going to say it's quality stuff, but so is T-Shirt Joe stuff, in my opinion. And I think T-Shirt Joe is selling enough shirts that he keeps doing what he's doing. So I just don't understand why Fright Rags and some of these other places. I guess because people keep giving them money. I mean, I'm stupid and I give them money every once in a while too.
No, I get it. I understand.
I've never been a big t-shirt guy. Like, if I got like £35 or whatever, I'd rather get a movie. But I've been meaning to get. I gotta get that Eurocode. On the Dead Pit site, I gotta get that t-shirt.
Yeah, I mean, I'll buy stuff, but it's just like I just look for deals with t-shirts. Like I don't really, like I said, the $40 gimmicks and all. That's just kind of. I don't know. That's kind of crazy. I mean, I know that's all the rage on Instagram, and you'll see people like rocking their custom like shit. That's like, I'm like, I mean, if you want to spend the money, that's fine. I just don't. I don't know. I've never been into that stuff really. So,
Well, and like I said, I do indulge in fright rags, especially, and I'm planning on going to that Dawn of the Dead in 3D thing at the end of October, and I've already bought a dang Dawn of the Dead shirt from Fright Rags
Mm-hmm.
so I can wear it when I go. And Steve's like, "Why do you have to do that?" I said, "Well, I don't have to do it. I just chose to do it."
I understand. I'd like to go to that Dawn of the Dead thing. I think it's at a Regal. We have a Regal like
Hmm
30 minutes from us, but it depends on what's going on. I mean, I'd like to go, but I don't know. It's one of those I have to see at the
We
time.
we don't have a Regal in Louisville, but just over the bridge in New Albany. So it's like 7 minutes or so.
Hmm.
There is a Regal, and that's the one we're going to.
Yeah, we've got AMC and Regals in Nashville, and then AMC is the one in our town, and then we've got local
Mhm.
theaters. We've got like a local old school theater here, and then we've got the Bell Court and Full Moon. We've got a few. It just depends on what you're looking for and when you want to go. Like they're
Right.
showing Kill Bill tonight at midnight
Huh.
at Bell Court, but I'm just too tired. I couldn't go to that shit.
I would love to go to the Bell Court, but Steve, like I said, Steve's gotten to the point in his life where if it's not real close, he's not going to go. As
Yeah.
much as he'd like to see some of the things they have at the Bell Court.
It's fun. I mean, I've been like 4 or 5 times. I went to the first time I went to the 40th anniversary. It was the 4K thing for Texas Chainsaw where Edwin Neal was there, and
Hmm
that was pretty fun. I mean, that was kind of a interesting viewing, but yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's just one of those things. It's not luxury loungers, which I'm kind of
Right.
used to now, and it's usually it's midnight showings, and that's kind of hard sometimes when you're. I mean, when I was 20 something, I could. I'm almost 38 now, so that's kind of rough sometimes to pull that. So yeah,
Well, it's gotten rough on me just getting older, but you compound that with the long COVID, and some days I just barely make it out of bed to do my work. Even though I'm working from home right now, it's just, and then sometimes by the end of the day, just all I want to do is lie down
yeah.
and do nothing else, and I hate it. I hate feeling that way.
You wait till you guys hit 50 then, because it's all downhill.
Are
As
you
Steve has
50?
probably told you. Yeah, yeah.
You don't look
51.
50.
No, Darren definitely doesn't look.
Man, I thought you were like 35 or something. You don't look 50 at all.
No, 50, yeah, 51.
Man,
Works leather.
that's man, I didn't know that. No. I can't tell how old anyone is though. It's hard for me to gauge that.
Well, I tell
It's
Steve
difficult across the internet. Yeah.
I tell Steve he doesn't look like he should be in his 50s. Steve looks younger to me,
Yeah, he does.
and Steve's like, "Oh, I got lines around my eye," and he says, "I don't have any hair." I said, "Steve, you didn't have hair when I met you. I'm used to it. I wouldn't even know what to do with you if you had hair. I mean, it's not a big deal for me, you
Hmm.
know. I think it's a bigger deal to him than it is to me."
Hmm.
I just noticed, John, I was looking, I wasn't on the movie screen. I just noticed you got a Burbs poster back there. I love that.
Oh yeah, that's a. I think it's a. What is that? A video home release one. It's not a
I
theater
got
one
you.
sheet. The house too, I got last week. I had to swap it because I had a Leatherface one up there.
Okay.
I don't. I have some on the other side. I've got like Nothing But Trouble Above a Hotel and some random ones, but you can't see them. And then I've got some cheap like just reprints, like Texas Chainsaw, like just a cheap reprint, and then some Return of the Living Dead, some stuff on the wall back there you can't see, but nothing. That's the originals, and then the stuff right here is original, but
Okay.
nothing crazy. The one sheets I try to buy my whole thing with the one sheets was I try to get stuff that's used, that's not
Mhm.
worth a ton of money. I was trying to shoot for anything under 50. So I'm not getting anything heavy hitter like that horror critic, Josh. He's on some of the
Uh-huh.
streams and stuff. He has some really good stuff. He just showed me like an hour ago and he got a Halloween 78 one sheet.
Oh, wow.
So he gets
Wow,
some
Awesome.
awesome stuff. Like I don't invest like I think that Friday 2, I got that in Franklin, Tennessee at a toy
Mhm.
store. I think that was 40 and that was like 2016. That's probably the most
No.
expensive one. The Texas Chainsaw 2 is not real. That's a reprint. It's from movieposters.com. It just looks like it's real.
It looks good though. I think
Yeah,
it looks good.
it's the best reprint I've seen, but the guy who owns that shop, I think it's like a mom and pop because they email you kind of like it's a mom and pop. So I think they
Mhm.
just do a good job with them.
You know, looking at that Burbs poster made me think about I can't remember who asked me about it last time, if it was one of you guys or somebody else that asked me about. No, maybe it was Dirk. He was asking about my favorite actors and actresses, and I think I inadvertently left Tom Hanks out when I was talking about that. Tom Hanks has to be, in my opinion, now you guys can disagree with me if you want to.
Mm.
Tom Hanks for me has got to be, dare I say, the best actor of my my movie watching generation, I guess I should say. Um, because that guy is just fantastic. It doesn't matter what he's in. He could be in a piece of garbage and he would make it marginally better just because he's so good at what he does. So I can't
Yeah.
believe I left him out when I was talking about that. It's like I have so many favorites. It's hard for me to focus
Yeah,
on.
no, it's like on the poster thing as well. I got, round about when Dead Pit started, showing off their poster collection, I kind of got in the bug of it, and I got literally about 200 posters, like original one sheets, UK, big quad posters and stuff. I got Prom Night up there. I won't adjust the phone, but I will show you at some point. And I got The Burning, My Bloody Valentine, and I want to put like a Pieces one up as well. But a lot of them are just stacked behind me and big tubs like and stuff. But I just haven't got the wall space really. But I did, I got to a point where I was buying them all the time. I had to like stop.
I still have an original one sheet of Prom Night. When you mentioned that, Darren, it made me think that I was stupid when I first started collecting posters. I guess I just didn't think about the collectability of them. So when I put them up, like I had a little weenie dog, Shorty, at this point in time, and I had put my Prom Night original one sheet, and this is going to make you guys cry probably, on the back of my bedroom door. Well, I had my bedroom door shut one day. I was doing something in the bedroom where I kind of wanted to be, left alone for it to be quiet in there. And so I didn't want my dog running in and out and stuff. He's a little weenie dog, and you know those little weenie dogs. He started just scratch at the bottom of my door, right on the bottom of that poster. So now that poster has, of course, now I don't have that little dog anymore. He's passed away, but it's got his claw marks all in the bottom of that poster.
Oh,
And so that just kills me now.
Damn.
That's
But
Prom Night, and I think He Knows You're Alone, Silent Scream. I got certain movies that I'll just buy, like Belgian posters. I'll buy the UK posters, the American.
Wow.
He Knows You're Alone is one of my favorite, like,
I've
80s
got that
slashers.
poster too.
Man.
Yeah, and there's some good I think I got a Belgian one. Funny enough, Savage Streets, I got my girlfriend at the time, going back now a few years. She bought me the French poster for Savage Streets, and it is like huge. It's like I'm trying to think of the size. It's like 3 times the size of a one sheet.
Wow.
So yeah, I did get the bug for it for a while. I'm glad I haven't bought one now for a couple of years.
Yeah,
I think
need to
I
start getting more.
I sent Steve the Madman Pakistan poster, didn't I? A few years
Oh
back.
yeah.
Because this guy on, you know, I don't want to go off on a tangent like on
Oh, that's
posters,
okay.
but there's this guy on eBay about 4 years ago, and he didn't know what he had, and he had a lot of these Pakistan posters, you know, Scream, Hell Nights, under different names with different artwork. And I just happened to I bought the Madman. I bought 2 versions of the Madman one, and then I saw that he had a load up. I just happened to like get talking to him, and I just chucked him out a figure for all of them. So I got about 30 or 40, like, and they're really rare. I tell you, they're really rare.
Wow.
I just need to get a chance to show them off because they're awkward to frame because of the size and stuff.
Oh,
some
I
of that
think I
stuff I
can. Sorry to interrupt you, Darren. I could hear a bunch of noise going out, and I remembered Louder Than Life is going on this weekend in Louisville, and you can hear that music all over Louisville. Like even in our little neighborhoods, we can hear it. It's just really thumping. I can hear it back here. So
Sorry if y'all hear me snapping. My damn dog is like licking a damn butthole. He's getting on my nerves. He's like, he does this shit. If I let him in here, I'm glad there's nothing on the floor because he'll get something and start running around and I can't catch him and he'll like figure out I'm playing. I'm like, God.
Yeah.
I've had conference calls working here where he'll grab something and I have my chair and he'll like start spinning around and I can't catch him. So I have to like move the chair to grab him. He's just like, word of warning, if you get a dog, if y'all ever get more dogs, doodles, just like they're a handful. They need exercise. If you leave them alone, they're just going to be fucking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love him, but he's like very hyper.
Well, you know, I've got 5 of them. So like I said, we're dog poor around the house. And sometimes they do things that just, hi there, buddy. And sometimes they do things that just aggravate the fire out of me and Steve. Like, Steve used to be more aggravated by these things like them licking their paws, and you just hear them go,
yep,
over and over and over again. Or Darcy, my little Chiweenie dog, that's we believe she's a Chihuahua and a Dachshund mix. Last night, I went, or not last night, but the other night, it got late, and so I went to lay down in the bed, and daggone, if she must have thought my back was the cover or something. She bit into my lower back, and I was like, damn. I was like, Darcy, don't do that. And she scratches, and she's got the sharpest claws. She scratched me and Steve all up. So I understand. I seen him run there.
Yeah, he's wanting to tire. That's when. Yeah.
Whereby are you guys in the film? Because I've had like tons of ad breaks.
She's crying.
Yeah.
She's like,
she's in the club or the bar or whatever you want to call it. Crying.
Oh, is the band playing where you are?
Yeah.
That's
so. Yeah.
Yeah, she's crying. Yeah, that's what I am there.
They all got those red satin outfits on.
Was that teacher the one next to her now? Was she in anything else as an actress? Because her name looks
she
face
looks
looks familiar,
but I can't place her.
It's one of my favorites, but I haven't seen it for a while.
This does have some awesome music in it because the movie's great and the soundtrack is great as well.
I've seen this soundtrack before. I don't remember where I saw it. I saw it somewhere in Alabama once. It was at this guy's store. There's a store in the central Alabama area, and this guy sells tapes and records, and I think he had it there. I think he wanted it was like $39.99 or something. I didn't get it. But I remember seeing it. And I was like,
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, and I was
God.
like, oh wow, Savage Streets, that's pretty cool. I was just like, it's one of those things that sometimes I'll get that stuff, and then sometimes I'm like, well, I'll probably pass on this. But
Mm.
yeah, now
Yeah, you
thinking
thought,
about it, I probably should have gotten it because I'm like,
yeah. It's hard to know when you don't know
I
the value of the
remember
stuff.
I remember back in '09, what the first time I met the Dead Pit Boys in at Fright Night. And I remember Aaron's birthday was that weekend, so I was trying to think of something I could bring him for his birthday. And two, it was my first time meeting him, so I was kind of like, I want to bring something along to bring to him. So I tried and tried and tried to get a Savage Streets poster and could not find one that I could afford. And I knew Linda Blair was going to be at Fright Night that year. So I finally found Savage Streets. I think I think that was the time that I got the Savage Streets vinyl. I could be
mhm.
wrong on that, but I'm thinking I remember getting that for him because I couldn't get a poster, so I got the vinyl.
Interesting.
I think he later went on to buy. I think he saw it on eBay, and I know he bought it after because he showed it off.
Yeah, I think he did. And Steve already, I remember this was my first time meeting Steve too at that time. And I remember Steve had his great big old Savage Streets poster that he's got over on the wall over here. And I remember I was just kidding him, but I so much at that time wanted to get Aaron a Savage Streets poster. And I said, I hate you, Steve. You got that poster. And he already had it signed by Linda Blair and everything. So
That's funny. The most random soundtrack I ever found, I have a decent amount. A lot of it's waxwork, but I remember I was at a convention one time. They used to do these record conventions in Alabama every year, and it was in a place called Gardendale. It was like near Birmingham, Alabama, and they would do it every year at this big community center. And it was just strange because they bring people from everywhere. And there was a guy from the UK who brought his stuff over. And if this was like 2018, I went in and he had a Fright Night, and I
wow.
was like, he only wanted like it was like $10. I was like, what the hell? And I got that, and I think I got the Alien Mondo as well. But it's just the weirdest thing to see that in Gardendale, Alabama. But
Yeah.
apparently it was like a big convention thing where you could buy. They had a lot of punk stuff, a lot of rock. You know, if you're really into that stuff, they had tons of that stuff. But yeah,
Have you both got a lot of vinyl then?
I've got a fair amount of it.
I got about maybe 100, like
Oh,
a good
decent.
bit.
I'm
Good
not
bit,
sure
not
if I
a ton.
have that many, but I have a pretty decent amount.
I think I own about 4, but I haven't even got a record player no more. So
Mhm,
I got the Prowler, the one Dana got,
Yeah.
mhm.
the Burning Pieces, and I think Halloween 2 from the original Halloween 2. So
You don't have that don't go in the house one, Darren?
the vinyl, no,
I got
I
that
didn't.
one. My parents gave me some birthday money or something like a year or so ago, and that's what I got with it. And I bet my mom thought that was so weird. Of course, she tells me, she's like, "We give you this money, we want you to get what you want with it." So, but I remember showing my mom, I was like, "Here's the pictures of what I got, Mom." And she's like, "Oh, that's nice." It's like I'm
That's
showing
got
her
like
this.
a really like good soundtrack, but like disco type thing in the late 70s,
Mhm.
mixed with
Yeah.
the other things. And yeah, that's the film I love. Maybe I love
Yeah,
everything about Don't Go in the House.
I've got a lot of waxwork. I had a lot more vinyl. I was really into vinyl when I was little, and I got into it because I found this guy at a flea market where I used to grow up near. It was Tupelo, Mississippi, and he had all
Mhm.
these vinyls, and I just kind of was like entranced by the artwork and stuff, and I would buy. The shit that every kid did in the 90s when they started getting into it, AC/DC and all that stuff, Def
Yes,
Leppard, and
yeah.
I got out of it when I was a teen, and then when I moved to Nashville, I got really big into it. Started buying, and the problem is I buy everything. Like I would just buy. I would be like the band. What was the band who did 99 Luft Balloons? And like I would buy like Twisted Sister, and I'll buy like just anything I would see for cheap, I'd get it. And over time, I've whittled that down. And what I've done is I have soundtracks now, but a lot of my music I sold and I just converted it into like Blu-rays or something and just bought Blu-rays. But I mean, I would say at one point I probably had like 400 or so vinyls, but I just have whittled that down. My friend still has a lot, but yeah, I bought too much. I mean, I would buy I'd buy an album for like one song. And I'm just
I've
like,
done that, one or two songs, and you buy it.
yeah, like I had like the entire like discographies of bands just for like a few songs that it's like just to complete it, because I'm majorly OCD, so I would be like, I have to have this. Yeah, I finally got out of that mindset. Mostly what I do is wax work. They kind of got me by the balls at this point. Like they drop something, I'm like, I got to get it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. But Steve is not as much into vinyl as I am, even the so-called collectible vinyl now. But I get a lot more. And he hates to go record shopping with me. He absolutely hates it. And there have been a couple of times where either Wes and Sarah have come to Louisville to visit with us and kind of go to different shops and stuff, or in some cases Aaron has been with him as well. And of course, when they come to Louisville, they're like, let's number one hit all the Goodwills, let's number two hit all the record shops we can hit, you know. And Steve is like, oh God. After 1 year of doing that, and I hope if Wes listens to this later, he doesn't get his feelings hurt. I don't think he will, but Steve told me after one time that we did that, and we went to record shop after record shop and Goodwill after Goodwill, Steve was like, I'm so exhausted, Dana. He said, if they want to do that again the next year, he said, you'll have to go right around with them. He said, I can't do it, because we just literally will. Well, I know I will. I will sit on the floor in these shops in front of a box or boxes of records, and I will just literally thumb through those. And he's over my shoulder. Are you done yet? Are you done yet? Let's go. Are you done yet? And I feel like I'm in the store with my dad, because that's what my dad used to do. He would let me go into stores, and then Dad would say, don't spend an hour in there, Dana. And I know one time my dad came in the store and I had left him waiting out in the car for like 45 minutes.
Oh no.
And you know the look your dad gives you if you take 1 minute more, you are dead. It was that kind of look he had in his eyes. And my dad's not a bad guy by any means, but he was serious.
Yeah.
He said, let's go. And you knew he meant business then. So I feel like now when I go to the store with Steve, it doesn't matter what store. He's like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. I mean, John, do you do that to your wife? Do you like
yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, I used to do that more. She's into she has some vinyl. She's got like maybe 10 that she bought for stuff she wanted. She's really into like Queen. That's like her favorite band.
Oh, I love
and
Queen, yeah.
So we've got a few things, and she doesn't mind it. Like she just kind of has like a limit with it, with the stuff. She'll go to like one store and then she's just like kind of over it, but she doesn't mind it really. I don't do that stuff as much now. I used to be really into that, but it just got to the point where with records, like I said, I mean, the soundtracks, I can sort of complete what I want. With vinyl, I was never ever gonna complete all the stuff I wanted. I was never gonna get the OG Ozzy Osbourne albums that I wanted. There was just certain albums that it was just like, I was never getting this unless I paid like $150. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. So I just was like, fuck it. I'm just gonna, because I mean, most of the stuff I listened to on Spotify, and I was like, I'm just not gonna deal with this anymore. But yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good turntable now. I got really into it for a while, but yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I tell people with vinyl, like, if you're just starting out,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, unless you're just wanting to do certain ones, don't do it. It's a trap. I mean, it's like, especially now. I mean, it's cool to collect, but there's just so much stuff digital you can find with music now. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, unless you just have like an idea in mind. It's hard, because it's so much. People talk about Blu-ray collecting being expensive. I mean, there's these vinyl albums. If you get metal albums now, it's like $100.
Oh yeah.
Any metal album, $99 if it's in good condition. And I don't have money like that to just throw around. So
I know I guess I must have went crazy there for a second with vinyl, because I went with my neighbors over to one of the record shops in town one time, and I'm a huge fan of Badfinger. I know that's probably a band that Darren knows of, Badfinger.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Never heard of them.
Oh, you never heard of them? Actually, the Beatles helped them get their start, because when the Beatles had that Apple company,
Mhm.
Badfinger was one of the first bands that they signed on with the Apple company. But anyway, I love Badfinger. So I went into this record shop, and I bet they had about 5 different Badfinger albums. And I wasn't even looking at the cost of them. I just said, I'll take this one, this one, this one, this one. I must have just lost my mind. And I think I spent like $100 just on those Badfinger albums. But, I still listen to them, though.
Yeah.
But, speaking of Badfinger, there's a really eerie story about them. And John, I don't know if you've heard the story about them. Is the majority of the members of that band committed suicide.
Oh,
And
wow,
I think there's only one guy left from the original band members, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And when the last guy killed himself, he left a note for that remaining band member that said, "You're next."
Oh, wow. That's
And
crazy.
I just always thought that was so eerie.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah, it's just, it's like, of course, the guy's still living as far as I know, so he hasn't killed himself. But it's just, what was going on? Well, I don't really want to know what was going on, but you got to kind of think what was going on in that guy's head. I guess he was in such a deep, dark, depressive state that who knows what he wasn't in his right state of mind, obviously.
Wow.
But
I never heard that one.
Yeah, that's a very eerie story about a band, and in particular this band. But they were such a great band. They made so much great music, in my opinion. But evidently, it must have been one of them artist things, because they say a lot of creative people, whether it's their painters or their musicians or whatever, writers, that they suffer from depression a lot. You've heard about Van Gogh cutting his own ear off and things like that.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very sad.
I would imagine CK and Uncle Bill have a lot of cool records. I know CK's got, I was on one of the NWOs, and he was talking about he's big into waxwork, and I know they're into like rock, and I know probably like, punk and all that stuff. And it's cool. I mean, I don't fault anybody for getting into it and collecting. It's just, it's so expensive. I mean, I found deals, but it's just, I just got to the point where I had to make a choice. I think, because I used to be into toys too, big time. Like I had fucking tons of G.I. Joe and NECA. Like it was just like stuff that would just fill this room. And I basically got out of that and sold it, and just decided, I was like, I got to stop for a lot of different reasons. And so now I try to stick to just like movies and that kind of stuff, and like vinyls for like soundtracks. Like I don't buy I buy a few toys occasionally, not much. I don't mess with like comics anymore, because I just couldn't. I had to stop. It just, you almost have to pick with this stuff, because you can't get it all. And I couldn't keep up with the toys either. Like I have some stuff behind me, but I can't. I have to pick. Like it's like I either want Blu-rays or something else. Like
Yeah, it's like with me. The first album I ever bought was AC/DC Back in Black. Back in, I think I remember paying £1 for it back in like 1981, something like that. And then I bought, like, right through the 80s. I was a big metalhead. I'd have everything original, Saxon, Iron Maiden, every album they ever done. The list goes on, just progressed, like Megadeth, Metallica. And to think of all the money that I've actually thrown away because I don't own any of them now. And I mean, the originals are like Master of Puppets, Peace Cells, like I say, all the DC stuff, Saxon, Dio. Just makes me mad when I think about it. And so I think I probably sold them as well for next to nothing.
It happens. I've done that. I've sold so much stuff for cheap. I mean, God.
It gets to the point where if you want to get rid of it, if you want to move it, you've got to sell it for next to nothing because nobody wants to give you anything for, or that's what I run into a lot.
The funniest thing with records I ever ran into was I swear every weird store I ever have is in Alabama. Like it's just like the weirdest place. But my friend and I, we usually every month or two we'll go hunting for stuff. My friend Lee, and we'll just go like usually in Alabama or Huntsville, or he'll come up here and we'll go around this area, or we'll go to Georgia, Chattanooga, because it's kind of like we just hit this like 2-hour radius around us, and we'll just go find like tapes, movies, whatever, vinyl. And one time we were driving at this down this highway. It was past Huntsville. And there was this like flea market shack looking place. And we go in and there's all these vinyls. And the guy in there is kind of eccentric. And he's like, yeah, it's like $2 each. And it was like amazing. It was like Miles Davis, like the Queen, the Gorillas. It was like all good stuff, like old school Leonard Skinner, like great quality, $2 each. And we got like a ton of shit from him. And we joked about it when we left. We were just like, it'd be funny if that guy didn't even work there. Like if he was just some psycho who just was like
he just kind of wandered in there.
Right. Because it was like $2. Like he's not even making, I mean, he's paying us to buy it. And I'm thinking, because he kept saying like, oh, I just had this. I got this from my stock last week. And I'm like, what is your stock? Are you stealing stuff? Like you're selling like $80 vinyl for $2. To this day, we haven't gone back, but he and I talk about that all the time. We're like, I don't know how that even happened. And that's not common with vinyl. I mean, that's like, that doesn't happen. So it's weird. Sometimes you run into these places and you get deals if you look, but.
Oh yeah. Well, I think I've told this story before about Fangoria magazines, like original Fangorias, like the old ones. I used to go to consumer malls. I don't know, John, if you're familiar with consumer malls or not. They're kind of like, peddlers malls or pawn shop things. They're kind of like peddlers malls because people have their own little booths in this one big building, and you can just go to each booth and look and see what people have. So back when I was going to the consumer malls a lot, me and my brother went to Owensboro one day, and we went into a consumer mall and we were just kind of browsing around. And this is the same place where I first found Rocktober Blood on VHS. But the same area, there was a table with a bunch of magazines and boxes, and they were in the plastic protector little pouches and stuff. So I'm seeing these Fangories, and they are like original old Fangories. And so I asked the guy, I was like, how much you want for these Fangorias? And he said, whatever the cover price is on it. And I'm like, holy cow, because this was the original price that they were back in the 80s or something. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting this one. I'm getting this one. I'm like, I was thinking in my head, dude, you're crazy for selling them like this, but I'm taking advantage of it.
Sometimes it's like that, especially in the South. You get people who have stuff, they don't even know what it is or they don't care. Like they don't, that's what happened with tapes. I mean, there's a guy who lives about 90 minutes south of me in a place called Fayetteville, Tennessee. It's like right on the line of Alabama and Tennessee. And he sells vinyl, but he had some tapes and he had sealed tapes and it was like $1. And I flipped a few of those. Like he had like the Punisher 89 and he had Tremors and all this stuff. And I didn't know they were worth something. And yeah, it's just sometimes people just don't care. I mean, I think most people now are smart to eBay.
Yeah.
But you go in the right area, it's just, I don't know what it is. Some people either don't want to check or they don't care or they're just nice. I mean, I would say always check Facebook Marketplace. That's always, you never know. I mean, I don't mean to keep going, but there was a lady who, this was during the pandemic, she had some tapes for sale. This was like 2 years ago. And she was in a place called McMinnville, Tennessee. And it was like a little bit south of me. And I just saw her shelf and I thought, okay, it's probably just going to be some whatever. So I get down there and she's like in the country. She's got like a trailer and just a good old like country place. And she's like, it's in here. And I go in and she had freaking The Gates of Hell on tape.
That's hilarious.
And The Thing. And she had like all kinds of stuff. And I got a lot of it. And I was just like, I asked her, I was like, where did you get this? And she was like, oh, it was my son's. And I was like, I mean, just the weirdest stuff. Like sometimes, like I said, just check Facebook. You never know. People might have this stuff, you know.
But there used to be a time on eBay where you could, like, I'm saying mid 2000s, where you could pick up all these posters, VHS, everything at a decent price. I kind of just got in there like a few years before, and I did buy a lot of that stuff cheap. But then, sort of hit in the late 2010s, it just, because everyone just got wise then and just no one's selling it. You don't get no bargains now, very rarely, unless you do one in a blue moon, maybe. But I remember eBay used to get them all the time. Sorry, go on, Dina.
Oh, that's okay. When I started doing auctions, or seeing what people had on auctions, does anybody remember the Yahoo auctions way back when? That's what I started out with, not eBay. I started out with Yahoo auctions.
I don't think I ever did that one.
And if you got in on that stuff, most things were reasonably priced. I would just pick up movies all the time. I would go through at least once a week there for a while. Let's see what Yahoo Auctions has. And I would be like, I'm getting this one, this one, this one, this one, And most of them were reasonably priced. Now, I'll tell you, that Key Video label, I think they were the ones that put out Terror Train on VHS way back when.
They did, yeah.
Though that label, they would go for $20 or more for VHS tapes. But that was the only label that I saw where it just skyrocketed. The others, you could get just about anything you wanted.
Well, I can remember Amazon as well, when they used to have, you'd be able to bid on stuff. Similar to what eBay was, but this was, and you could get things dirt cheap again. And then he sort of kind of stopped there, and obviously now it's just, you just buy on from the warehouse basically, but you can get sort of second-hand stuff. But yeah, I used to just, and then you bid on something and no one else has ever seen, and you're getting something good. And yeah, I miss those days because everything sort of, you can just, by the press of a button now, you can just get any movie you want, literally. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't change it for the world, I suppose, but I do miss the hunt and the chase and all that. Especially when you had like an eBay, you had an eBay listing coming up and you'd be all excited, to put in that last like 30-second bid.
Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times, and I probably piss people off, but I can't tell you the number of times that I sniped a bid.
Yeah, I did.
I would sit there with my finger above that mouse button, ready to click in the last few seconds, just like Darren said, and just click, I'd be like, yes, it was such it. I hate to say it this way, but it was almost like an orgasmic
Yeah,
feeling sometimes to be able to you just snatched it out of the hands of somebody else and now it's mine, you know.
And then again, you got the other, where you'd have that done to you as well, and you'd be just mad for like an hour
Yeah,
until you
you'd be
calm
pretty
down a bit
pissed.
afterwards.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a rush to buy and stuff, I think, for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, it's I remember the first thing I ever bought that was I first got internet, like really internet was like 97, and I remember being so excited because I would get on those sites. I'm sure you both remember this, like pre-eBay, pre-Amazon, where you could buy the bootleg tapes.
Mhm.
And it was like these sites, and I bought something from, it may have been the UK, and I remember it was like probably the same story many kids had at my age. I bought the first time I could get Army of Darkness, like the uncut edition with the ending.
Yeah.
I remember ordering that and like getting that in, and just like that whole thing was so weird to be able to do that, like
Mhm.
to find that.
Yeah.
And I even wondered sometimes, like, what happened to those sites? Did they last for a while? I don't remember what they were, but I remember.
I don't
doing
know
that
if they
type of
were
stuff.
maybe forced to take their stuff off by the powers that be, you know.
Yeah.
But I remember buying a bootleg of Last House on the Left on VHS, and it was supposed to be
Mhm.
the cut that had the intestine pulling and all of that. And I was like, I know this sounds pretty weird to people that are kind of outside of our circles. It's like, God, Dana, why would you want to get the most explicit version of this movie? It's because I can't stand not to be able to see all the stuff that they originally put into these movies. I just can't. That fear of missing out thing, I think,
Right.
is what it is. And so this was I believe it was a Dutch version of Last House on the Left.
Mhm.
And I think it had subtitles in that language on there. But I was so excited when I got this bootleg VHS of Last House on the Left. And it looked like shit. I mean, I'll be honest with you. But I still was like, I'm getting to see it all. I'm getting to see everything these guys put into this movie. No matter how
Yeah.
gross it was, it was still everything in it.
Yeah, because that was like some ways you could only get to see the film. It's like Argento's Four Flies on Grey Velvet was you just could not get it anywhere at a certain time, and it wasn't that long ago. I'm talking 15 years ago. And you had to basically go on these sites and like you say, you get so excited for a week or so or 2 weeks until it turned up, and then like I can remember watching Cannibal Holocaust on like 10th generation VHS, and it kind of added to the film. Me and my mate, we were just I love that film to this day.
It's like you're right up there squinting to see all this. It's like,
yeah.
but
And of
I'm
course,
getting to
like
see it.
the UK as well, we got a lot of the cut stuff officially, so that's the only way we could do it really. With the video nasties and all that, but you get such a buzz that you'd be waiting. Oh, I'm going to see the uncut version of Cannibal Ferox or whatever film it was
Right.
like, and yeah,
we didn't need drugs. We
no,
we were getting
exactly,
high
yeah.
on this stuff. It's like,
And I
Isn't
don't know
it
about
weird?
yourselves, but still do it now, for
Mhm.
Blu-ray releases and
oh yeah,
Isn't it weird how, like, back in the day with the video rental stores, and I don't know, Darren, if it was like this in the UK, but it's like you had Blockbuster and you had like Hollywood Video and all the big ones, Family Video, Movie Gallery, but then you had the mom and pops. And
Yeah.
for where I grew up, the mom and pops had the weirdest shit. Like, they're the ones who would have like I Dismember Mama and like Campbell Frocks and like Faces of Death. And it's just like, that is crazy. Like, it was like these little rental stores that are just like ran by just like these meager, like most of them, like in my town, it was just like an old couple Or like I remember one of the
yeah.
stores was ran by like someone who was like a deacon at like a church.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And they got like the craziest shit in there in the horror section. And you're just thinking like, why was it always like that? They just didn't know what they were getting, or I don't know. It was so weird, you know.
I think they were probably so outside of it, you know what I mean, that they didn't know what they were getting. They just was like, oh, this looks like it might be popular. Let's get this. Let's get this cannibal holocaust or whatever and put it up. I don't really think that they knew how explicit some of that stuff was at the time. Because like I said, they were so far removed from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like with me, like one of the first was basically this video rental in the back of this shop, and the lady was a family, friend, like, and she was alcoholic, and she would basically let me rent anything when I was like 9, 10. I first got to see The Exorcist and films like that, but and then they, like you say, they don't know what they got. They they don't know what they're sitting on. They just, especially if it's a shop combined with a video store, do you know what I mean? And then you got and then you just had the big ones, like John said. We had all them, most of them. But yeah, I missed that little. It's called the Beer Barrel, I think the shop was called. And if I could go back just for one day to when I was like 10 or 11. And rent, I remember renting Halloween like on this Friday night, and it was rainy, it was stormy. We went back and bought a load of, food like chocolate and stuff like that, and
to go back.
Some really good memories. Yeah, just for one day, just to relive that again would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think a lot of mine was like that second wave of like. Probably, I don't know, because a lot of that stuff in those mom and pops, I probably got in around the time Anchor Bay and like Video Treasures and all really started re-releasing shit. That was probably my wave of stuff, like mid-90s, because like it did seem like there was like a big influx of that at the same time coming out, and it was like kind of coming back into the forefront. But yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking when you guys were talking about mom and pop stores, I remember the mom and pop stores around my neck of the woods. We had Video Corner and gosh, I'm trying to remember the one in the town over, like, because our county was really small. Hancock County was really small. It had 2 cities, Hallsville and Lewisport. And Hallsville had their mom and pop video store, and Lewisport had one too. And I'm totally forgetting the name of that one. But actually, the one in Lewisport had the more obscure titles. I'll never forget this because you know how we all talk about House by the Cemetery and how much we like it and stuff like that. I remember seeing House by the Cemetery VHS at that mom and pop video store. And I remember the store owner coming over to me to ask me if he could help me find anything. And he saw me looking at House by the Cemetery because I didn't even know who Fulci was at the time. This tape just called to me, And so I was kind of looking at it. He said, "Oh, you don't want to watch that. That's a horrible movie." And I'll never, ever forget that because now I love that movie. I absolutely love that movie.
Yeah. I don't recall seeing a ton of Italian films when I was a kid in the store. I mean, I might have seen Suspiria on the shelf, but I don't really, a lot of that stuff I just did not see until way later. I didn't know of it. I mean, it may have existed, but it was like most of what I would see would be like the really like low end big box stuff, or like shit like Alien Prey, or like I remember 3 on a Meat Hook, things like that. It was just like all that stuff that Vinegar Syndrome just wets their pants over, just trying to get it's. But no, I mean it is. I think about like now with the Italian horror and stuff. It's just I was like, I don't know if I saw a ton of that as a kid. It's like there was a point where I was aware of it. Because I didn't really get aware of Argento until I was watching this thing on IFC. It was like late 90s. And
that's what I did too, John. That's exactly what I did.
it was something with opera, because I remember they were showing something about opera, and I was like, what is this? And then I started researching it. That was like the first introduction into Argento. And then Fulci, I was in a store in Memphis, and I saw a House by the Cemetery on DVD, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I saw like the front, and I think I just bought it blind. I was like, well, this looks crazy. But I don't know. I guess, and it could have just been where we live. I mean, some of that stuff is probably harder to get depending on where you are. But
I've told this story many, many times before about Gates of Hell, but I'll tell it again just because I love telling this story. I got my dad to thank for probably getting me into Fulci because he didn't know who Fulci was. Him and Mom just went to a ton of drive-in movies at that time. And Gates of Hell was one of those that they saw at the drive-in. So all the time growing up, I would periodically hear my dad talk about this movie that had flying maggots and a guy getting his head drilled. And I was like, holy cow, I'm missing out on the greatest horror movie ever made. So when I was finally able to see that for myself in full, I found it at a little mom and pop shop, big box. Of course, you didn't get to take the big box home, but you took it up to the counter and they gave you the tape. And I was like, I'm finally getting to see this movie that my dad has talked about for years. And that was ultimately my introduction to Fulci. And then after that, I watched the Beyond under the heavily cut Seven Doors of Death, unfortunately. And I didn't even know it was a Fulci film at that point because, of course, they had the pseudonym Lewis Fuller on there. And my brain wasn't thinking, okay, that's Lucio Fulci. Now I know.
yeah.
But back then I didn't. But after seeing The Gates of Hell in full, I wanted to watch everything Fulci made. So that's really what got me started and was Fulci.
When me, like with the Italian stuff, was I think it was 1986 or 7, and I rented Demons. That was the first time I actually got to saw Dario Argento's name on screen, even though he didn't direct it. And I just fell in love with that film. I remember copying it and just playing it over and over and over, and sort of progressed then on to like Demons 2, which I think came out the same year, which was 87. But all the Fulci stuff, first Fulci film I ever saw was Zombie Flesh Eaters. And at the time, it was like quite hard to get hold of, like Cannibal Holocaust. So it was like a 5th, 6th generation tape. But yeah, once you get into those things, like I went a good few years that I sort of, I would go to the movies with my girlfriend at the time, but I kind of, wasn't a collector or anything. And I didn't start collecting then until like, say, the mid 2000s. And then you got all the Blue Underground shit, you've got all these like Fulci Argento titles coming out. I just went crazy then and just fell in love with all of it, really. All of it.
I used to go, well, it wasn't FYE then. It was, gosh, I can't even remember what. That store has changed names so many times, or at least in my neck of the woods, it's changed. But it was some other name then. And I remember going in there one time and they had clamshell VHS. I mean, these things look beautiful. This was back before Blu-ray or anything like that, and before DVD got really popular. So I saw these clamshell VHS and I ended up getting Torso, believe it or not. Darren's probably going to laugh about this because it looked cool. And it sounded cool, but that was my first experience with Torso, and I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it. But it had a cool case. It had if I remember right, it had a yellow clamshell, and then that classic cover art on it. I was like, I have got to get this. But there were some others, and I can't remember the other titles now. Just Torso sticks out in my mind that I got that way because they were so beautiful to display and everything. But
interesting.
Yeah.
Was that Anchor Bay who did that?
It might have been, John.
Yeah, they hit so much of that. The first thing I ever rented was, I remember it was like, because I remember you used to have to rent a VCR if you didn't want to buy them because they were so expensive. Because I remember renting Bloodsport. That was like the first thing I ever got, like rental. That was like my introduction into the VHS world. Because I was a big fucking ninja mark, like to a ridiculous point. Like I used to dress up like ninjas as a kid, and just like I wanted to be in one of those canon movies, basically. Like that was like that was like what I wanted to do. And then the horror stuff just kind of came with it eventually, right? But yeah,
I gotta put up these chat messages because Dirk says no love for torso. Why? And then Texas always teases me. He says torso hate. Yeah.
A lot of that too, it did seem like it was easy to accept. It was easy to get access to like the cheap odd stuff as a kid, like in the 90s, like Trauma. That was so easy with like what was on TV. That was all over. But it was really weird thinking about it, that like Italian horror or Spanish horror or any of that, it just wasn't on TV. It wasn't talked about. It was not even on like a lot of those, even those talking head things that they made forever. A lot of that wasn't even on there. It was just like they ignored it. Kind of weird when you think about it now, but
yeah, it's kind of a shame you got people like Fulci who didn't really know, how many fans out there loved his stuff. He kind of got, just before his death, he went to one of the Fangoria weekends. But that's kind of sad,
That it took that long.
Yeah, lucky enough, Argento's lived a good, full life. Martino, and a lot of like even Lenz, he got to know, all his fan base and how much people loved his films. But it's quite sad. It's with the Italian stuff, like you say, John, was I think the internet basically is what catapulted these movies. Otherwise, they would have just been dead and buried. Because the chances of them ever turning up on TV was rare. But in film in general, mind, the internet has just blown up everything, and you can get like so much now. That's
a lot easier access. A lot easier access now to stuff about the movies, and actually to be able to own them. I've talked about this too. I used to moon over the movie listings back in the day in the classifieds of Fangoria and Gorezone. There used to be these pages towards the back of the magazines where these movie companies would sell movies. But this is back in the day when a VHS was going to cost you $100 or more. And really the only people that could afford to buy them were video stores.
Wow.
And I used to moon over the titles because I didn't even know what kind of movie they were, but the titles sounded so great that I was like, man, I wish I could buy these. I wish I had the money to buy them. This is before I had a job or anything. And so there was no hope of me being able to own those for my very own back then.
Some of those tapes as well, like in the old tape trading back in the 80s I used to tape trade a lot with the live, metal shows and stuff. But you'd literally be waiting 5-6 weeks for your stuff to turn up from like Japan or America or whatever. Wow. But again, it was like you get up every day and you check the mail, you're so excited. But I remember waiting 3 months, something like that, for stuff at the time. And didn't bat an eyelid. But now you want it now, don't you?
Exactly. Back in the day, it was kind of like, John, you've seen A Christmas Story, right?
Oh, yeah.
When Ralphie's going to the mailbox every day because he's wanting to get his little Orphan Annie decoder pin. And he waits, he's like, oh, skunked again. And then when he finally gets it, and he's thinking it's going to be some really great thing that he's going to figure out. And it's, don't forget to drink your Ovaltine. And he slams it down. He says, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
So did y'all ever run into that there was something that you were really excited about, really waiting for it, and you waited a long time and you got it, and it was a piece of shit. Because I
Oh
ran
god,
into
yeah.
that a few times,
Yeah, I don't know if there was. I remember the first time I got an eBay purchase. That was a fucking dud. I
Uh,
remember it was like 2001 or 2000. I bought a Genesis
mhm.
refurb because I was wanting a Genesis, and I remember I got it in, and my friend, I had it actually sent to at the time where we went to church. Back when I went to church, as a teenager, like I had it sent there, and we like opened it up, and the Genesis just didn't work. It didn't work at all. And my
Oh,
friend was laughing. He was like, "Oh, that's fun. Hey, good luck with that eBay." That was like a big dud when I was a teenager. But I
well,
don't know. I mean, most of the time, I can't think of anything that's just like a super disappointment, other than just like as a kid with video games, like renting NES games and SNES
right.
games, like getting those in, and you're going by the cover art. You don't know if they suck or not because you don't have the internet. So you're just like, well, the cover looks great. Let's see how this shit is. And
I loved it whenever the emulators came about. When the internet got bigger and more
yeah,
people had home computers and stuff. My
mhm.
brother started telling me about, because he's a big video game nerd. I'm not so much as he is, but he was like, "Yeah, they got these emulators, Dana," and we loved that. We loved that shitty Friday the 13th game for
Oh God,
Nintendo
yeah.
and the Freddy game and all that. And
Hmm.
so when you got the emulators, my brother was like, "Yeah, I'm going to get the Friday 13th game and the Freddy game and all this
Hmm.
stuff." And we would play them on the computer through the emulator. But damn, that game was hard. It might have been shitty, but it was a hard game. I don't think either one of us ever beat it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a rough one. That Friday 13th. That is not an easy game, and it's kind of fun and that it's nostalgic, but it's kind of brutal. NES games in general are
Mhm.
really hard to beat. I won't go off on a video game thing, but I Ninja Gaiden was a game when I was a kid that I played and I always wanted to beat,
Uh-huh.
and it took me until I was like 32 to beat it. I beat it like a few
Wow.
years ago, and that was like it took me that long to beat the fucking game, and I've been trying to beat that since I was like 4 years old. And it's just like those games to this day, some of them I don't. Yeah, Contra,
Oh my
right?
gosh,
Yeah,
Contra, that's a blast from the past. My
yeah.
my brother and my dad used to play Contra all the time. And I did not, I mean, can you steal somebody else's lives in the Contra game? Can
No,
you
you
do
could do the
that?
Contra code. That was the Konami code was what was popular as people would get the
Uh,
99 lives or the 90 lives thing. Because you could I still can't beat Contra normally. I have to do the Konami code.
well,
But
so I don't know what my dad was talking about, but I don't know why I did this, but I used to run around with a little tape recorder, old fashioned tape recorder. And sometimes I'd just leave it recording in the room where my dad and my brother were playing a video game. And I used to have an audio tape of my dad getting mad because he said, "Damn it, Jason, you keep stealing my lives." And they were playing the Contra game, and I don't know why Dad was convinced that my brother was stealing his lives.
I
But
don't know. Huh.
that was
Interesting.
so hilarious.
That's
When
funny.
when Dirk said Contra, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's a blast from the past right there."
Did y'all get into like with movies? Was horror your introduction in the movies, or was it another genre? Because for me, it wasn't horror. What got me into films was two things. It was comedy and it was like action. Horror just kind of came into that. But like I would say like my first entry was like probably action. I would say that was
Right.
probably my entry point.
Mine Mine was probably half horror and half action and maybe a little bit of comedy because
Mhm.
my mom and dad both got me into movies in general. And my mom has been a big horror fan for years. And my dad kind of, with the horror stuff, he kind of went along for the ride. When him and mom started dating,
Mhm.
that's what a lot of the movies that were playing at drive-ins were. A lot of
Mhm.
them were horror movies, those low budget horror, slasher, exploitation type of movies. That's what people went to see. And so I think the combination of mom and dad taking me to drive-in sometimes when I was young, and me remembering parts of prom night, me remembering parts of things like Death Ship, any number of vampire films they might have seen. Um, and then also, my dad was always really into action films. He got me into Dirty Harry. He got me into Death Wish. Um, all of that kind of stuff came from my dad. And then, of course, we had those movies that I still have fond memories of watching with my dad. Jaws, uh, Dawn of the Dead. The first time I watched Dawn of the Dead with my dad, I always think it's a coincidence. It's a weird coincidence that both me and Aaron both have fond memories of watching Dawn of the Dead with our dads. Um, and so I think I guess it was a combination of movies and a combination of things that just came together that really got me interested in movies in general.
Yeah, for me, it was slightly different. In the UK, I remember as a child, we'd watch all the, films at Christmas. You get all, Wizard of Oz and stuff like that. I was never really a big cinephile up until I was about, say, 10, when Salem's Lot came on for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my sister, we recorded the 2 parts off of TV. And then that just got me in the love of horror.
Yeah.
I can watch anything. I don't mind action films. I don't mind any films. But yeah, that's what got me really bang into it. And then you'd have stuff like Carrie would come out on TV in the years. So I'm talking early 80s though, and then it just progressed then to where, I just become like a massive slasher fan for some reason. That's my favorite subgenre. And like probably Giallo maybe have passed that now, but they're kind of the same. But in terms of watching film, yeah, I remember watching all the comedies in the 80s, Trading Places and stuff like that. Or Police Academy films. We had all your American films. We loved them. But yeah, I just slightly sort of graduated leaning towards horror a lot more. To where now it's just an obsession.
I think my dad got me into a few comedies too, and I hope this doesn't sound creepy or weird to people, but the type of comedies my dad got me into would be what would be considered probably teen sex comedies. We're talking about sex comedies from the 80s, which were a lot tamer, you got to admit, than the stuff that comes out now that's considered a teen sex comedy or even a teen comedy in general. But here's the deal. My dad watched all those for the first time on television, which meant they cut all the, really racy stuff out of it. So, you had things like National Lampoon's Vacation. You had, I think my dad saw Porky's for the first time on VHS.
Yeah, we got that as well. Yeah,
Porky's is such I probably saw Porky's before A Christmas Story on TV, and I didn't know it was Bob Clark.
I probably did too. Yeah.
No one figuring out that was Bob Clark later is a trip because I didn't know. I just knew, like, I remembered that ending, especially when I was real little. It was on TV where they like get him to like drive in and they're in the bus and they like trick him to go across county lines. Because I think they used to play that on like, I don't remember, it was a TBS or something back in the day. But yeah, I agree. A lot of that like sleazy shit, you would see it on TV and you just didn't. You'd see the edited stuff,
Yeah, and then you get the hold of a VHS. It's like, whoa, this is a totally different movie almost.
Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks.
Oh God, I love Bachelor Party.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that as well. It's like with the horror stuff as well. Probably in like when I was 10, 11, my sister would rent out a lot of stuff we'd watch, and probably sex comedies was as popular, if not more than horror. Because I've got some good memories of Porky's, The Last American Virgin. I remember watching that and feeling like you wanted to cry at the end.
Oh my gosh, the end of that bums me out. I cannot believe what Diane Franklin does to Lawrence Mollison in that movie.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
And she plays such a
So-
weird character in
Mhm.
Better Off Dead. Like her character in
Oh,
that,
yeah,
and then Better Off
Oh,
Dead. I
right.
love Better Off Dead's like one of my favorite comedies, and it's like in that one she's so nice and meager, and then the
Oh.
other one she's like, yeah, it's
Oh
totally
man,
different.
she's a bitch. You hate
Yeah.
her in that movie.
Mhm.
And that's a remake as well of Lemon Popsicle. Because
Yeah.
we used to get all the Popsicle films over here. And they like, are they Turkish or something like that? I know they're foreign.
Yeah,
And,
it's
they're basically
Israeli.
just, yeah, that's right. Sorry, yeah. And they're basically just skits in there of like 90 minutes of these 4 guys trying to find, young women all the time. But yeah, we had all that. We had Screwballs. I remember them. Meatballs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We had it all.
Do y'all
Dirk said
remember?
$2. I love that part.
Do y'all remember some of that? Those lesser known ones like Cherry Hill High. There was Cherry Hill High. There was one called The Best Legs in the 8th grade or something like that.
I don't think I've seen that one.
I
I don't think I've
remember
seen that, no.
seeing those things, and I think I watched Cherry Hill High, but I don't think I watched the other one. I just saw it in the, and they were kind of, just really low budget versions of like Porky's and
Right.
some of the other things. But it's just, I was thinking Cherry Hill High I could have sworn Tim Matheson was in that movie.
Animal House was another one we used to get.
Yeah,
every year.
Animal House.
Remember?
Yeah.
That's so fantastic. I remember recording Alpha Telly, trying to play it, without your parents walking in at the time, some of the root bits and stuff.
Well, I used to watch a lot of TV in the living room when I was living with my parents, and I probably shouldn't have. I should have been watching this shit in my bedroom. But invariably, somebody like my dad would come in there during a sex scene or something. I remember watching A Clockwork Orange.
Oh God.
And it was
Oh,
that
God.
scene where he goes to the record shop and picks up those chicks, and they go back and they're having sex all over the room.
Yeah.
My dad came into the living room at right that point, and he just stands there for a second. He said, "What on earth are you watching?" I'm like, "Nothing, Dad." I'm trying to turn it off,
Wow.
We had a similar thing. Like me and my 2 sisters are like a couple of years older than me. We were watching Carrie back in the early 1980s. And of course, at first, you got the scene with her having a period in the, showers. My dad happened to walk in, and I never got to see Carrie for years and years because he confiscated the tape and everything.
Now, my
It took
dad
me years
didn't.
to see it.
My dad didn't do that. I was just so embarrassed
Yeah.
that my dad would walk in on a part where they're just like almost doing calisthenics on the bed, having sex, and it's all sped up and things. And I was just like, oh, I was mortified.
The one I saw as a kid that I to this day wish someone would put it out is The Party Animal. Do y'all remember that?
I don't remember that.
It
Never
was an
heard of that one.
80s. It's an 80s movie about this guy who goes to college and he's like a redneck and he takes this sex potion and all these girls like end up like screwing him to death. It's like a comedy. It's a comedy, but it's definitely one that I feel like Vinegar or Severin would just jump on if they got it because it's right up their alley. And it has like a really good soundtrack, but I've never seen it. It's kind of like in that like CK was talking about like King Frat. It's one of those where it's kind of surprising that it hasn't had a new release of something, So
I should ask Steve about that one because he's seen a lot of stuff that I haven't seen. Sometimes I'll say, "Have you heard of this?" And he'll be like, "Oh yeah, it's on the hard drive." 9 times out of 10, I ask him.
A film John mentioned not long ago, Bachelor Party. You never get that heard mentioned much now, do you?
No.
I don't hear much
and
about
that
that film
one's
now.
great, and it's got Tom Hanks on it. It's got
exactly. I was going to say, yeah. And you got that scene when that guy with the transsexual in the shower. Oh God! As
and
a kid,
he's like he sees that guy taking a pee.
Yeah. Oh, that is just brilliant! I tell you.
like that, and he's in the shower scrubbing his nether regions.
That was just so funny as a kid
Oh
watching
my
that.
gosh!
And then
Yeah.
the drugged out friend, they'd like pick him
Oh
up at
my
the airport.
gosh.
He's like,
Yeah.
guys, and they're like, what happened to him?
He keeps trying to kill himself, but he doesn't do it in ways
The
that
big
would really
razor.
kill yourself. He's got an
Yeah.
electric razor. He
Is that film out on Blu-ray? Because I've never, like you said, I've never really
actually,
thought about that film for years. I've got to get that now.
You know, it seems like it would be a Shout Select. That seems like it would be right up the Shout
Right.
Select alley.
This is
But is it?
and this is I guess 20th Century Fox just put it out. It doesn't really have a lot of extras, but it looks good if I remember correctly. But it does
I
have
got
like a behind the scenes thing.
Mhm.
It has some Tom Hanks interviews. I'm not sure, but I think they're vintage interviews because I'm sure they're not going to get Tom Hanks to talk about this now. But
Yeah,
I
he
think
doesn't seem to want to discuss that one.
Yeah. It's a type of film to me. I think I'd just be happy just to have it rather than the commentary tracks and all that. I don't think I'd. But just to watch it and just to laugh.
I got it from Amazon. Let me look, Darren, and see if they still show it available on Amazon because I don't think I spent too much on it.
One that MVD is putting out soon that I was really excited about is Men at Work. I was like, oh man,
I
that's
love
awesome.
Men at Work.
Yeah, that's like such a random underrated movie.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's
Oh
What's that one
man,
about?
that one's great.
Yeah, it's like Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez, where they're like garbage workers, and they get caught up in this like crime thing on accident.
Well, Darren, I saw it on Amazon here in the United States. You can get it for less than $10. It's like $8 and something on Blu-ray. So
That'll be going on my Amazon wish list as soon as I get off here.
Adrian Zemed is also on this. Tawny Katane.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I was so excited when Shout Factory put out Nothing But Trouble. I can't tell you, like I was sitting there because as a kid, like that was like one of my favorite movies, and I had the DVD. I actually bought the DVD like 3 years ago, and I was letting my wife Becca watch it, and I was like, they've got to put this out on Blu-ray, and I was like just actively waiting, like looking and looking. And when they finally put it out, I was so excited. I mean, the audio track on it is kind of janky. They did something weird where it's not mixed well. But that was just, yeah, that's definitely like one of those where I had to get it because it's just such an odd film.
Well, guys, this has been awesome. I know we didn't talk about the movie much, but I had one hell of a conversation again with you guys, and I enjoyed it. And we did talk about the movie some, but I think this has happened with every watch along and commentary that people have done. You just get to, it's good to have people on here because you can just throw things out there. Like I say, throw things at the wall and see what sticks. Mm-hmm. And we've had multiple great conversations, and I enjoyed it a lot. But I think I'm going to get ready to cut it off because people may want to go over and check out what Dirk and the boys are doing, and I don't want to. And Darren might want to get to bed. I don't.
Yeah, it's 3:15 now.
Oh
shit, man! Sorry. Yeah, the movie did look good though. I mean, the ending looked. I was watching as we were talking. I mean, she put that dude through the ringer at the end, like teasing she's gonna kill him, and then. Like I said, I feel like I'd seen it maybe, but it's been so long. I'm going to have to rewatch it again. I mean,
you've got to sit down and give it a proper treatment with the headphones, or I don't know what your sound setup is, because the soundtrack is superb as well. But yeah, and then obviously come back on the chat then, down the line and tell me and Dana what you really think of it.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you'll love it.
Yeah, it had like a feel. It definitely has like a class of 1984 type feel, like that exploitation.
I would say that, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want to thank you, John. Thank you, Darren, for being on here with me tonight. I guess the next one we will be doing, I guess, will be the Maximum Overdrive. And old Curly Jaws better be in here that night because that's the one he picked. That's the one he said he wanted to do. And then I think that Sunday we will be doing Don't Go in the House. So
Nice.
everybody can look forward to that. I'm going to be starting a new verses thing. What did we say it was going to be?
I think it's Fragasso, isn't it?
Yeah, Matei
Matei.
versus Fragasso, week 1. So we're going to be talking about a lot of fun movies there. And
Yeah.
so we got all that coming up, and who knows what else I might throw in there. I'm still doing the Cheese Extreme Wednesdays. We've got another couple of movies to talk about on Wednesday. And I think that's all upcoming. And I want to thank you guys again. And Darren, I hope you get some rest.
Yes.
I hope you don't feel bad tomorrow. Or
I'm
actually,
an
it is tomorrow
insomnia
for you.
anyway, so
Okay.
it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, sorry, I always forget you're so distant.
I forget it too.
Yeah.
I try to make as many as I can, like, you know, but I always catch up if I don't get them live anyway. So,
Right.
you know. But thanks for having me on, and it's been great chatting to you guys.
You guys have an open invitation, and the next time you hear Aaron complaining that I don't let him on here, will somebody please verbally kick him in the butt? Because I have told him over and over again he can come on here. Wes has been on here. All he's got to do is tell me he wants to be on here, and I'll send him the link. None of this crying and belly aching anymore about I don't let him on here. You know me, I'll let anybody on here. So anyway, everybody have a good night, and this was fun, and I look forward to doing it again soon.
Cool.
All right. Good
See you
night,
later.
everybody.
Good night.
Later.
Good night.